This is Richard LaMond Tullis, and I'm going to do a little history here on the mission that I served in Bolivia. It was to the Bolivia La Paz Mission from March of 1978 through it was mid-March of 78 through mid-March of 1979. Correction on the time frame. That should have been for a 2-year period from mid-March 1978 through mid-March of 1980. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about my experiences and show some slides here and talk about several things, and hopefully that some of you, and especially some of my posterity, will find this helpful down the road, because this was a significant part of my life when I was 19 to 21 years old. First of all, let's go clear back about a year before. Well, let's go way, way back. When I was a little boy even, I had, my grandfather and others were always just teaching me about mission and the importance of serving and telling me about their mission. I remember Dad talking about his mission many times and the things that he'd learned and the friendships and the companions and things that he did while he was down in the Guatemala and surrounding areas and countries. But I remember my grandpa Grandpa Tullis was really, really priming me and helping me and mentoring me and guiding me along to be able to serve a mission. And I always thought I'd serve a mission, but I'll tell you some interesting things that happened along the way that just about knocked me out of the running. But first of all, let's just move then forward to about a year before I left, and it was maybe a little bit before that. But I'd started to be concerned about a mission and where I wanted to go and my personality and just all those little things that everybody goes through as mission becomes closer. And I remember seeing a Deseret News article that my mom or dad, showed me that came on I think it used to come in the Saturday paper. And the Deseret News article showed two missionaries in Levi's, white shirts and boots on horses, and they were in Bolivia, out in the on the Altiplano at one of the remote Aymara indigenous peoples, Aymara people, teaching them, and they had big smiles on their face. And here I thought, that's where I want to go. If I go on a mission, that's what I want to do, And so I kind of had that in my mind. And by the way, when I was 8 years old, lived in Peru with my dad and mom and Mike. We lived in the highlands of Peru in Huancayo and lived there for around a year, maybe a little less. And I just got thrust right into a kind of a second grade Spanish school there and learned Spanish pretty good as a kid. And I always thought, Spanish speaking and everything. And by the way, when I went into the LTM, we'll talk in depth a little bit more about that experience. But I'd forgotten everything, my Spanish, and kind of was right at the beginning in the training with the group at the LTM. But anyway, that's where I wanted to go. And later on, as I contemplated and what to do, and finally decided I'd go. And it was kind of a hard decision, because I had Cindy and I were very close, and I was afraid that if I left, she'd find somebody else and I'd be left high and dry. It's called getting Dear John'd. And the fall semester of the fall semester before I went on my mission, so I left in 78. So fall semester of 1977, I went one semester to BYU, lived off campus with 3 other roommates, and that's a whole other story there on some of that. But I lived my second group of people I lived with were all returned missionaries, and one of the guys that I was with there, he'd just got home from his mission from Argentina, and he was devastated because he'd been Dear John. He thought he was going to be married in a couple of months, and his so-called girlfriend for the last 6 months to 8 months had just kind of led him along, but she was secretly engaged with somebody else, and finally told him just a few weeks before he came home that you're getting, your Dear John. And he was devastated. He was still traumatized, and that was worrying me, about going on a mission. But anyway, I decided to go. And back then, I don't remember filling out my papers. I'm sure it was all by hand. Now it's all electronic, of course, but I filled everything out. And I remember one day, one morning, the American Fork Post Office called where we were living in Highland, near Alpine there, and called and said, "Hey, there's a letter that looks like a mission call. Do you want to come and get it, or do you want us to deliver it with the postman?" And so I said, "No, I'd go get it." So I ran, I went pretty fast in my 1970 Chevrolet Impala down to the post office, picked that up, and opened it before I got home. Guess where it was to? It was to La Paz, Bolivia. My mission call was signed by Spencer W. Kimball. That just blew me away. Get a little emotional now because it's blowing me away even now just thinking about it, because I remember the feeling I had. So powerful because of that year before saying, I want to go to Bolivia if I go on a mission. And that's where I was called to. Went home and told my mom and dad. My dad practically burst into tears as well. He was so overcome that I had that opportunity to go because he'd been down in Bolivia doing some work. Of course, we lived in Peru. He'd done a lot of work through his political science professor at BYU and research on the peoples and their governments and what was going on down there. And he'd been down in Bolivia a year or so before, as I recall, and was so excited that I could go. But President Kimball was just my idol. This is kind of his famous picture here, I believe, when he was president of the church, or early on when he was president. And he was just my idol. I've still got that mission call. I'm sure it was signed by a robot, but it looks like real ink. I don't think he signed it in person. I don't think he could sign that many letters, but it sure looks like it was signed by him. But it may be a robot signing. But anyway, that's my mission call. I wanted to insert something right here that I forgot to put in, that I missed a note on, was that President Kimball received the revelation that all worthy males could receive the priesthood, I believe, on June 1st of 1978. Of course, I was on my mission. And because of the turnaround on mail and communications and everything else, we did not find out about this for over a month after the fact. And when we heard this down in Bolivia, of course, we're not seeing newspapers, nothing like this. We got this through the mission, communications. We were so shocked. We couldn't believe it. First of all, we couldn't believe it, but then we were so excited that this could take place. It happened while I was on my mission. That revelation was an exciting event that came to President Spencer W. Kimball. So moving forward, looking down here at some notes, just some things I want to be able to say. Oh, okay. So time comes that I get ready to enter the MTC. And I'll just tell you right now, it wasn't the MTC then, it was called the LTM, and that means Language Training Mission. The Language Training Mission was located where it is now. It had just been in operation a year or two then. Prior to that, the LTM housed missionaries down in what was Knight Mangum Hall on the BYU campus, but then they had finished this new facility, and that's where I was at. The English-speaking missionaries still all went just for a week or 10 days up to what's called the mission home in Salt Lake before they departed. But all the foreign speakers went to the LTM for 2 months, and that's where I was at. Well, I was traumatized when I got there, to say the least. But, my parents had done everything to prepare me, clear down to helping me the last minute pack my belongings. And I made a mistake in the type of luggage that I'd taken. As a missionary, you need to be able to carry everything on your person. You can't be expecting other people to carry one of your bags. And I just had one too many suitcases. But there was a lot of things that we were required to take to go to Bolivia. Among other things, boots, very warm clothing, and so forth. And I remember I was lucky my dad bought me the top of the line pair of Red Wing boots. We went down, they were the lace-up high-top boots, and I wore those through my whole mission and practically wore them out. But anyway, they dropped me off, and it was pretty traumatized. I remember my grandpa Tullis was there, and we sang probably Called to Serve or something as they talked to all the new missionaries coming in, and final song, and then the mission leaders or the president said, okay, parents and relatives go that way and missionaries come this way. And I was hammered. I just remember it was pretty tough and everything. But after I was there, oh, and my first companion was named Jim Waite. He was from California, and such a good guy. I actually got to serve with him later in my mission, again as a companionship that we'll talk about as we go. But anyway, after about 18 hours, something just came over me, and it was not good. And I'd had it, they told me I started just fighting everything. They told me they gave us instructions if we didn't shine our shoes every day, we'd lose the spirit. That kind of stuff just didn't track with me at all. I thought, if this is what a mission is, I'm out of here. And, I was missing Cindy, missing my parents. And so after 18 hours, I told my companion, I said, I've got a dime. I was going to go call, and I'm heading out of here. And on the way, I stopped in. The mission president wasn't there, but one of his counselors was there. I said, hey, by the way, I'm just letting you know I'm leaving. And he goes, well, why don't we talk here for just a minute? And, I said, I said, nope, I'm gone. Bye. This has been great. After 18 hours, can you believe it? I mean, this seems just crazy to talk about it now. But I remember calling my mom or dad. I don't know who I got on the phone, but I said, hey, can you come and get me? I'm coming home. And they said, well, I just can't imagine what they were going through. I'm sure they started to pray immediately and prayed the whole time they came down to see me, and couldn't believe what their son was going on. He'd just given such a great farewell and everything. It was just amazing. All these people honoring me. I was leaving on my mission, and I could last 18 hours. Well, they stopped off to see Cindy on the way to see me, and said, Cindy, this is what's happening. If he comes home, what do I tell? What do I tell them? What do I tell Rich? And she said, well, tell him if he comes home, he doesn't have me. And so that my parents conveyed that to me, but they came down, and my mom and dad in a little room in the LTM. It took them 3 hours. We didn't move out of the little room for 3 hours before I started to think, this is weird. This is not good. I need, I'm tougher than that. I can stick this out for more than 18 hours. But it took 3 hours for them to convince me. And one of the things that hit me pretty hard was, of course, Cindy said, forget you if I come home. And the other thing was, my dad said, well, you'll have to give back all the money that people had given you at your farewell to leave on your mission. And that was substantial. That was back then, that was $100 was a lot of money. And I think Aunt Faye gave me $200, and Cindy's mom and dad gave me $100, and all kinds of people in the ward gave me $25 and $50. And there was probably $1,000, I'll bet. That was a lot of money, and I'd used everything up, all my savings and everything, plus my mom and dad, what they provided to get me on the mission. And by the way, my mom and dad, I used all my money to get on my mission, plus my mom and dad helped me, and then my dad and mom paid for my mission each month. And down in Bolivia, it was about $130 a month. And that was still quite a bit of money. Nothing like the mission monthly fees weren't equalized back then, and that was, even though that was a lot of money, that was cheap compared to what some of the missions were over in Europe, England and so forth, $600 a month. Cindy's dad was paying for 2 of his kids that were over in Europe, Germany and England, so $1,200 a month. But anyway, so after that 3 hours, they said, listen, you stick it out this 2 months, and then if you still want to come home, we'll take you back. And I thought, I can do that. I'm better than 18 hours, and we'll just give it a shot. So anyway, I did my best during the 2 months I was in the LTM. Here's some of the pictures here. This particular, this was my LTM group. There was 8 of us, from California to Idaho to Utah to, I believe most everything was California, Idaho, and Utah along there. But this was my group. There was 8 of us. I can't remember. I feel so bad, and I was such a bad journal keeper. I didn't keep all the names. That first guy, I believe, was Elder. I just kind of remember by Egbert or Eggleston. It might have been Eggleston. And then the second one was Jim Waite. He's in the brown suit. He was my companion. Brian Stegelmeyer, he was from Idaho. And then Brian Nash was somewhere in California. I think it was Mike Empey. I believe it was Mike. It may not be Mike, but Elder Empey, I can't remember where he was from. There's me in my London fog coat. That's one of the things that they asked us to bring. We all had to bring overcoats to keep us warm, and believe me, I needed that for dry during the rainy season up on the Altiplano, as well as keeping warm. And then Scott Stokes, he was from Camas. And then Scott Sessions, and I can't remember where he was from, but he actually his family was actually down in Peru when I was 8 years old, and I remembered him from Peru, and he remembered me, and we were pretty excited to be together on that. That was my LTM group. And then of course Jim Waite and I are standing there outside one of the MTC buildings, and next one is kind of me there standing outside there, still traumatized, I'm sure. But the next picture is Elder. Well, it wasn't Elder. He was a teacher. He was the instructor. I'm sure he was a student at BYU, but he was from the Yucatan of Mexico, and he was named brother. I think it was Jorge Tejeda. But anyway, he was one of the ones that did not give up on me. He knew I was struggling. He knew I was having problems. I mean, he was trying to teach me Spanish and teach me how to memorize the discussions. You can see these next pictures there of the rooms. Some of the rooms where people even had earmuffs on, banging their heads to, again, they're trying to just memorize. But Elder Tejeda, he did not give up on me, and he loved me, and he was one of the guys that truly got me through that 2 months, because it was the worst experience, I say today, of my life. I hated it. They treated us like babies. Like I say, telling us we'd lose the spirit if we didn't shine our shoes every day, and we couldn't play basketball. They did let us play volleyball for P day or for exercise time, but I was traumatized, and it was just a bad experience. But he got me through it on that LTM. I didn't learn a thing. Most everybody had the 8 discussions memorized. I couldn't memorize. Memorizing didn't work for me. Luckily, I went on a mission where we didn't give memorized discussions. If we gave memorized discussions to most people down in Bolivia, we lost them just like that. And so I was so grateful that I could learn the concepts, and that's kind of what I do today. I learn the concepts. I learn how to react and what to do, and then I can talk and I can teach. But I think I memorized the baptismal challenge, which was a page and a half, is all I could do, it felt like I started totally over on Spanish. Nothing came back, but that was my LTM experience. Now, before I go on, from getting down to Bolivia after the 2 months, and I did make it through, and I did get my head riveted back to my shoulders a little bit, so to speak, and said, I got to do this. But it was close. I'm telling you, it was close. But before we get down to Bolivia, I just want to say a few things. A mission is very, very hard. I don't care who you are, whether it just everything seemed natural to you. I remember Ben telling me, my son, Ben, when he left on his mission to go to the MTC and go to Taiwan, I said, Ben, you are going to hate the MTC. It'll be bad, bad, bad. Ben told me it was really great, and he loved it. I think, but it doesn't matter whether that's the case or not. A mission is very, very hard. I won't beat around the bush. It is for everybody. It wasn't just me, because I was messed up a little bit at the beginning. Don't think that a mission every day is just spiritual and you're on cloud 9, because it's not. It's not that way. I believe for everybody, there's many more days of tough work, discouragement, struggling, wondering if you're making a difference, and health issues, especially I'll talk about later in Bolivia. I had a lot of bugs and worms and amoebas that really knocked me back and caused a lot of problems. But there'll be more days of that wondering why you're there and if you're making a difference than the days that are just absolutely you're on cloud 9 and the spirit's there and you're making a difference. So don't be deceived into thinking that it's a tough thing to do. And I'm so glad that I was able to do it, and I made it past that 18 hours, and got down to Bolivia, because it was the greatest experience of my life down to that point. But I just want to tell you, it was tough. For those that might come across I've spent the last 2 or 3 days going back to my journal. This was my mission journal, a couple hundred pages in it. Here, I don't know if you can see that on the camera. Here, my writing. Oh man. First of all, I'm a horrible, horrible journal keeper, and I'm trying to make some changes now that I'm almost 63 years old to start keeping a better journal. I guess it's better to do it sometime than never. But those that might come across my journal sometime, couple of things to note. My writing is horrible. It's very hard to read. And I was pretty open, and I was pretty, I didn't hold back on the tough times. And I'm a little embarrassed, because as you read my journal, you think, boy, that guy's discouraged all the time. I seem to write more about the bad times than I did the good times. So it's weighted toward the discouragement. Please note that I'm correcting that from what it appears to be written in that journal. There were some great, 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 wonderful times too that I'll talk about in some of the pictures here in a minute. And there's some things in there that I wrote where please keep it in mind at the time and where I was at, and the experiences, and I was sick, and the doctors, and amoebas and worms, and please note that sometimes I said things that probably I wouldn't document, but it is documented in my journal, and I want you to know it is there. So that kind of brings us up to going to the airport. Let me just take a fast look here and see if there's anything, whether there was, my roommates were a crack up. There was Elder Waite and I, and there was 4 to a room in the LTM, and Elder Waite and I were there, and then there was 2 others going to Mexico that had been there a few weeks before we got there. And they were a crack up. They were just a crack up. And I think their attitude, I think it was good that they put us with them instead of other members of our district, because they kind of helped me go to, because they were just taking it in stride and not letting anything bother them, and that helped me. And I can't remember their names except for, I can't remember their names. That's another thing. Suggestion for the future for some of you that might hear this is document things a little bit better than I certainly did. Write names down and dates and times. Okay, I think that's it for this part of it. And then the next segment here, we'll get to arriving in La Paz and my first area. Well, all right. So mid-May, and I don't have the exact date. So I was in the LTM from mid-March to mid-March and mid-April. Let's see, April, May. So mid-May, a couple of the assistants or somebody drove us from the LTM up to Salt Lake City International Airport for us to head down to La Paz. All 8 of us in the district. And back then it was kind of nice, because your family, everybody came to the airport to see me off, including Cindy. And I remember back then you could walk clear to the concourse, clear to where you get through the door to go onto the airplane. Your family could come. I remember my mom and dad hung back and said and told Cindy to go with me. Cindy rode up with them. So here's a picture of me hauling my suitcase, and I don't know, I think I'd already checked the other baggage. It was too much baggage, too many suitcases, but that was my carry-on. Cindy's with me there, and that was kind of a cool experience, but I had to say goodbye to her and got on the airplane. And I can't remember the stops. I know it wasn't straight to La Paz. I don't remember if we flew to Lima or Central America, Panama or something first. But anyway, here's the airplane. I believe it was Braniff. It was Braniff International going down, and Braniff International when I came home as well. They're out of business now, but those were fun jets. Here's the picture of the airport, La Paz International Airport there. It's 13,000 feet in elevation. I believe, I don't know for sure, but the runway was 5 or 6 or 7 miles long, at least 5 miles long, because these jets had a long way to land, and a long way to get out of there. I remember they could not handle 747s. They did have 747s at the time. I believe this was a 707, Boeing 707. There was one time the air is so thin for the airplanes that high that a 747 had to make an emergency landing in La Paz. The only way they could get it out of there on that long runway is they had to, of course, no people other than the pilot and the crew, and they had to take out many of the seats as well to get the weight down to the point, and minimal fuel, I think, to get down to Lima to get it out of there. But this La Paz is kind of in a little bit of a bowl, off the mountainside. You can kind of see from this next picture, the top of that's called the Altiplano, and that's about 13,000 feet in elevation there. And then as you leave the airport, you come down into the bowl, into the capital city of La Paz. And I believe in 1978, there was 650,000 people that lived in this massive bowl known as La Paz. Here's some of the other pictures there and so forth. I fell in love. I fell in love with this over my mission, and I was so excited to be there. This particular mountain in the background on these next two pictures is named Mount Illimani, and that was always kind of a beacon to me. I'd look at that mountain, it would just give me good thoughts. Still to this day, I love Mount Illimani. Always wanted to get over to the base of Illimani. It was out of our mission. There was nobody out there on that base. There were some old roads and everything, but never did get over to the base of that. Always looked at that and wanted to. This next picture, here's the mission home. They welcomed us heartily into the mission home, and that mission home is down in Calicoto, La Paz, kind of down to the bottom of the bowl where all the rich people lived. And let me tell you, you range from people in just absolute horrible conditions to live in places down to just a few miles down into the bowl where the rich people lived. And there was more money and nice homes and things down there that I'd never ever seen. But that was the mission home. It was very comfortable, very nice. And basically they brought us in, and they had us sleep for about 12 hours. I remember, because the elevation from Provo, 4,500 feet, 4,700 feet, to La Paz here, even down in the bowl, we were 12,000 feet something, 11, almost 12,000 feet. Now, top of Mount Timpanogos is just under 12,000 feet. So we were, this mission home was the top of Mount Timpanogos. And so after that, they got us up and fed us really good food and everything. This is great. And gave us our first assignments and where we were going with our first companion. This was my first area, up a little canyon, kind of on the way up toward the Altiplano, but a little canyon called Pura Pura. And this was kind of the railroad route to get from the Altiplano down into the city. But that was my first area, called Pura Pura. My first companion was in the next photo there. His name was Kelly Taylor from Texas. Man, what a great guy. He was so adept at the language and such a spiritual giant. He was only 2 months ahead of me, and they made him my senior companion. And this was our room. The next slides here was kind of where we worked in Pura Pura. It was pretty tough conditions there. We did not have a bathroom nor any running water whatsoever, and that kind of freaked me out a little bit. I mean, I knew what I was getting into, but we had no toilet, no running water, no bathroom. And so, just to be honest, what you had to do is at night, you'd hopefully only have to pee, and would pee in a bucket and then go dump the bucket outside somewhere the next morning. And for bowel movements, it was hopefully you could time yourself so it was dark, and we just found wherever we could out on the hillsides and wherever we could go to do our duty there. And that was tough. I was all, when I first got there, I'm going, how am I going to brush my teeth? What am I going to do? And all of a sudden I was kind of worried about stuff for the first few weeks there that I never even thought about again through my whole mission. Um, but we did have a little burner, and we were able to boil water and then cool the water, up in a windowsill overnight. And we most everything we boiled. So we had a lot of hot chocolate. You'd buy cocoa and powdered milk. There was no fresh milk or anything like that down there. And then you just heat that up, make hot chocolate out of it. Or there was oatmeal. A lot of times I'd make oatmeal really, really thin and just drink oatmeal. But you had to boil the water for so many minutes, or you got bugs. Everything was contaminated. And so that was a little bit tough. And I had a little bit of culture shock, even though I'd lived in Huancayo, Peru, and everything. I had a little culture shock. It was tough. And Elder Taylor was so patient with me and worked me through it. Plus, all of a sudden, I had a pretty big bouts of homesickness, and I was missing Cindy, missing my family horribly, and everything. But anyway, got through it. I was with Elder Taylor for 3 months. Just after a week or so, I'd been down there in Puta, this Elder Harris next to me there. Notice the change in my weight and the way I looked over the 2 years. I've kind of tried to get most of these pictures kind of in the order of things happened. But that was Elder Harris. I don't remember his first name, but he was a zone leader. He was their zone leader, just leaving to go home. And we got that picture. Got that picture with him, Mount Illimani in the background, and he was such a great guy. Often wondered about him and what he's doing today. I'll bet he's very successful in anything he put his hand to. But he mentored me a lot, and just for the few days I knew him, and got me through some little bit of discouraging times adjusting. The next picture there is out of order. I believe that was some kind of a Christmas party or something, because you can see they were the elders there were kind of dressed up a little bit goofy. The elder on the right in the tennis shoes, his name was Elder Blair. It was either Blair or his first name was Blair. But after he got home, he was working for BYU and was working the very first game of the new Lavelle Edwards Stadium. And the contractors had screwed up and didn't have one of the big wrought iron gates right. Anyway, Elder Blair was working the crowd and everything, and that big wrought iron game fell on him and really crushed him. Really hurt him for the rest of his life. And I don't know what happened now, but he almost died when that crushed him. The man in the middle, that was our mission president, Eugene Hill. What a great guy. Now, he wasn't my first mission president. When I got to Bolivia, the mission president name was Chase Allred. And I only had him for 6 weeks or a couple months while I was down there. He was just finishing up his 3 years. But that was one of the things, his personality and the way he treated us, President Allred, was what got me kind of through these initial culture shock and tough times, and kind of getting squared away on what to do. I remember it was totally different. It was like the whole world just went off my shoulders when we got to Bolivia in that mission home. And when he gave us that assignments, he basically said, "You guys are men. Elders, you're men now. Go do the work. Go do the duty. And you're men. You can make decisions and so forth." While I was in the LTM, I mean, every decision on what time I woke up, what time I used the bathroom, whether or not I had to shine my shoes, which way I walked, which way I looked, how I thought. Everything was just thumbs on me, and I couldn't live like that. I didn't grow up like that. I grew up with a lot of responsibility in my home and expectations of things, and excuse me. And boy, that was tough. But President Allred, he made the day. But he left just after a couple months. President Hill came down. President Hill was one of the He worked full time at the LTM. I believe, I'm not positive on this, that one of his duties there in the presidencies or so forth was some of the curriculum and so forth. But what a great man. I loved my mission president, President Hill. We just barely had a 40-year mission reunion here 2 or 3 years ago, and got to see him. You'll see his picture with me kind of at the end of these slides. But he was patient with me and mentored me and had trust in me and lots of different things. Next picture, this is who really got me through my mission. I do these on the fly, and so I can't go back and fix it. I'm going to get a little emotional. But this is my companion, Elder Taylor. And then to his, looking at the picture to his right is Zoila, Z-O-I-L-A, let's see, Z-O-I-L-A Torres. She was my grandma away from my home. She was my grandma in Bolivia. And that's me. That's her daughter that I've got my arm around, Roxana. And then I believe that boy there's one of Roxana's sons, Rodolfo. She also had a daughter named Paula. They all lived together there. There was another guy named Hector that either roomed there, or if he didn't room there, he boarded there for lunch, or he was able to get lunch there. We were here every day because this is who fixed us our lunch. I don't remember the dinners. Lunch was the big deal. Breakfast, we had some hot chocolate and a piece of bread, pan. Pan caliente was nice. We could get hot bread. But Zoila, she loved me. She cared for me. It was a tough deal. Anyway, okay, forget that. Let's see what's next here. Another picture there. That's some of the sister missionaries there on the right. I don't remember their names. Some of these names I think I could pull out of my journal if I looked hard enough, but man, my writing's bad. I can hardly read my writing. Dang it, I wish. But they were there. They'd been there a couple months or so. They'd already been there on the mission. That lady on the left, I can't remember her, but she was in her 30s or 40s, single. And we all got together. This is who Zoila cooked us our lunches, and it was always good soups, and her food was always so good. I just loved it. This is out her little back part of her house. Every place was walled off, but this was her place, and with Mount Illimani there in the background. Okay, that was some more of the people in our zone. And I don't remember Elder Taylor there on the left, but I don't remember the Bolivian missionary. I know the girl's name, the girl in the red, that was from the U.S. Her name was Hermana Farb. I don't know how to spell that. Excuse me, talking too much here. And then her companion was a Bolivian from Tarija, I believe, in Bolivia. And then I believe that guy on the right was named Elder Roberts. He was a good guy. He was a clown. He kept me smiling. I believe that again is in part of Zoila's property there. Okay, this Pura area, we spent a lot of time on these little buses. They were called micros, and they were really quite nice. Some of them were Bluebird bodies from the U.S., just kind of small school buses. But this, for whatever reason, this particular area had this nice little bus system. A lot of the areas, there was the micros, and then there was the colectivos. The colectivos were just beat up pieces of junk that barely ran, and these micros were kind of nice. But because some of them were school buses, little school buses, some of the legroom wasn't too good. Next photo here this was our typical shower, okay, and we got to shower once a week. The most I ever got to shower was once a week. And so you can tell being down there, we got a little bit dirty, but after a while, I don't think any of us smelled each other because we couldn't even smell ourselves. Excuse me. But this was a little dangerous. See, there was no hot water. If there was running water, and we'd go to a place, this might have been at Zoila's house, the mission home, or the mission office, which was in kind of more central part of the bowl in La Paz, and I can't remember the name where that was at. That's where most of the missionaries came on P-Day to shower, and this is what we had. This might have been at the mission office. So they had running water, but only cold, and so and the voltage was 220. So you'd get in the shower, of course you're in water, and you'd reach up and push a little a little, I can't remember what it's called, but anyway, a little switch up there, open bus switch on that, and that heater would electric element in that top thing would give you a little bit of, excuse me, a little bit of hot water. I don't know how we didn't electrocute ourselves. Never heard of anybody electrocuting themselves, but it was pretty scary. But you had to be sure you had the water running before you activated the circuit, otherwise you'd burn out the element. And let me tell you, they were not, that was expensive to fix, and you didn't want to ruin somebody's place. Over here, this next one, I don't remember where I took this at. This might have been down in Villazón, my fourth area, I believe. Let's see, first, second, let's see, might have been my fourth area. Anyway, that one you can see one knob, cold. That's actually where I had to go 1 month. There was no water for anything for 1 month. So that was the longest I went with no shower. And we actually it came on. We could have got showers at about 27 or 28 days, but my companion and I said, no, we're going to go a month. We're going to say we went a whole month. So we didn't go to shower as soon as we could. But sometimes they would fire up. They had some big 55-gallon barrels out in the back of the building that they would get a big fire going, and the cold water pipes went through those barrels. So if there was something to burn, then you could at least get a little bit of warmer water, but most of the time it was just cold. Next picture, that was my bed, I believe in my first area there in Pura Pura. Typical day was as we got up at, we didn't get up. I mean, you basically did your morning study in bed with your covers on. It got so cold in these rooms. There was no heat. You can imagine being at 13,000 feet, no heat in the winter time, which the winter is our summer. It got so cold, so normally we would just study and do our thing in the morning, pretty much stay in the covers until 9 or 10, and then we'd go out and work. But that was, you can see those wool blankets, and the bed was too short for me. You can see my Red Wing boots there. I had my Adidas Superstars, and used those kind of when we tried to exercise. When we go out and try to jog, you could jog 100 yards even as strong youth, and then you just kind of die because of the altitude. But I wore those Red Wing hiking boots most every place during my mission, except for one place I was kind of in a very nice part of the city near the mission home at a district called Achumani that was bordered Calicoto, and I kind of had to wear my Sunday shoes there. But every place else I wore these hiking boots. That bad luggage, man, that luggage was so hard to get around. But anyway, that was the bed. Next picture there, I can't remember where this was at. This might have been in my secondary in Oruro. There was a little propane fire heater there that we were able to use at times when we had enough money to buy some propane gas. You can see right on the chest there, and between the beds, there's a Big Ben clock. That was the clock I kept. I always had a map of Utah stuck up there, and then always had family pictures. You can explore a little bit of those pictures on the wall. I had all my family, and Cindy's in there, and anyway, Jesus and calendar, but that was basically what our rooms looked like. The next one is we never did have chest of drawers or anything, and I don't remember the different rooms where this one is at. I just kind of put these together, but hanging a lot of stuff on the wall there, and always had those pictures of my family up there. You can see just to the left of the clock, there's something about personal goals I've written out there, and you can see to the left of that is the Marlboro man hauling in a Christmas tree to the cabin. And I wasn't smoking, but I sure kept me sane to think of the horse and the Christmas tree and bringing it in there. Guess that's about all the interesting stuff on that picture there. And I'm looking down because I'm either looking at my notes or looking at pictures on the computer as I talk. More things. Next couple of pictures are just more of how we had to, how we had to store our stuff on the wall there in our rooms. Kind kind of me there with my suit and everything on the towel, and belts and ties are just sitting on the wall there. Next picture there is, let's see. Let me just get down through here. Okay, now I am not sure who these people are. It drives me nuts because I have a very good memory of them, and I don't know. He might have been the branch president where I was at in this location, or so. There wasn't a stake yet formed, and I feel so bad because this was a great little member family, and I don't know who they are, and I couldn't find any notes in my folder on it, so don't know. But I sure have good thoughts and good memories of them. This next picture is just kind of down in La Paz, a lot of the cholitas, which is kind of the name that was used for the indigenous Quechua or Aymara. Mostly here it was Aymara women, and they would sell their things to try to earn a few little coins here. They'd just sit on the streets, and you could go buy different things from them. That was pretty typical. What was really tough is there was no refrigerators anywhere, except for I'll tell you about Villazón, which is on the Argentine border. How when I get to that point, we had a refrigerator, but nowhere else on my mission. Everything was just beef hung out in the open air and the flies until it went bad. If it didn't sail and it went bad, I guess they'd just, they'd dispose of it, throw it out somewhere. But everything, this is how it was sold, and I believe that's one of the reasons we got quite sick. Next picture there is, I quickly learned that first area in Pura Pura, in P days we'd go down into the cathedrals in the capital cities just to learn about things occasionally, and just everything there was always blood and gore with Christ. The Catholic Church was dominant, of course, and they don't really worship the atonement like we do. We believe the atonement is the most important part of what Jesus Christ did for us. Of course, his resurrection is important too, allowing us all to be resurrected, but it's his atonement that allows us to be forgiven and be perfected and live with him again someday. But with the Catholics, it's everything. What Jesus did was the suffering, and the suffering was on the cross. It doesn't really depict it in the garden. And so some of it was not too bad, like this was. Some of the cathedrals you're going to is really blood and guts. Again, anytime I got a picture of the mountains and Illimani. This is up on the Altiplano. We were heading on a trip somewhere, and in the bus, probably a P day, and I believe we were probably I believe we were going to P day. Our whole zone went to Copacabana on the shores of Lake Titicaca, which is up on the Altiplano. So we get up, you come out of the bowl, get on the Altiplano, and go an hour or so by bus on dirt road. Once you get out of La Paz, and most of La Paz is dirt road. The main roads are paved, especially in the rich area of the city, but everything else is dirt. And so that's the Altiplano. But once we get over to Lake Titicaca, there's Kelly Taylor, my first companion, on the right, and the two guys in the middle there. I don't remember their names, but elders. But Lake Titicaca is the highest navigable lake in the world. And I got to see this at 8 years old in Peru when Dad took us out there, and we went out to one of the floating islands that float on reeds. And there's a picture in the Peru collection about that, but this was Lake Titicaca. Copacabana was kind of a resort community. And when I say resort community, there's no power there. No power, okay? So that's Kelly Taylor and I out Lake Titicaca. Another picture of the Altiplano. Some little building out through there. And again, we're 13,500 feet here. They can't really grow a lot of things, but the potatoes that they can grow, they make into what's called chuño. And chuño is basically naturally freeze-dried potatoes. So you grow a little type of a potato, and then during parts of the year you'll go way below freezing at night and barely above freezing. You get up to 50s in the day. And so over several days of putting a little water on it and freeze thaw, and walking around it with their feet, they turn this thing into chuño, and it takes a while to be able to eat. Didn't taste too good to me, but toward the end of my mission, if I got a little chuño and people put a little peanut sauce on it, I actually got to where I quite liked it. And most people had trouble though with the chuño, but that was a staple down there. Next picture is kind of one of my favorites. Again, we were on one of the trips, probably coming back or going to Lake Titicaca, and it's just the Altiplano, and it's just barren but beautiful. Just one of the most beautiful places to me there was in what I like. That's the dirt road, that you drive on. This might have been one of the trips to some of the ruins out in the Altiplano called Tiwanaku or something like that, but I put it in here. It might have been, yeah, that previous picture probably was Tiwanaku, because this is the ruins of Tiwanaku. And this is out of sequence a little bit on the timing. This was probably a little over halfway through my mission, a little more, but you can see I'd lost a lot of weight. I'd been really sick. I was down to about 130 pounds. I went on my mission at 172 pounds. And this was one of the sets of the ruins. They're quite extraordinary ruins there, and for some reason I only got this picture. But back to Lake Titicaca, kind of out of order. Part of this stuff around this area was part of what was called the Inca Highway, and the Inca Highway covered the Incas. This is the original part of the Inca Highway that was going down off the Altiplano. Well, Lake Titicaca is essentially right at the Altiplano. That's the high plain, but this is the part of the Inca Highway going down to what's that Copacabana town on the edge of Lake Titicaca. It's still there. Still, you see the guy walking it, still uses it. Incas built thousands of miles of this throughout their empire before they were destroyed by the Europeans. Another little I'm on a little bit of a P-Day thing. Paseos would go out and hike and do things. This is where a little family would live. A whole little family would live in that little house right there. I was lucky enough to get a couple pictures of a couple little girls there, and we talked to them and so forth. Another place we're out there. Now this time of the year can see a lot of the green. So this is during the rainy season, and during the more of the winter. Let's see. I don't remember and can't say for sure when the rainy season was. All I know is in the dry part of the year, you'd never see a cloud in the sky practically, and the sky was so blue, and you just go week after week after week with no rain. And when the rainy season came, I've never seen so much raining so hard and so many inches in my whole life. But with all this green, must have been around the rainy season. Another time we went on a little hike to what's called the Muela del Diablo, the Devil's Tooth, up out of the capital city down there. I think this is the rich part of the city down there, Achumani and Calicoto and so forth. Just kind of a picture of a formation there. These are some of the little trips we went on. This was probably as we were getting up there to start our hike, and then from kind of when we were up high looking down. But just beautiful. I just love this, and this is where people live, and this is some of their fields where they try to, these little different fields that they try to subsist on. As we got up to the top, this was kind of the group of elders I went with, and as we got up on top of the mountain, that's us. I've always loved high places and love hiking, and I love looking at a mountain and getting up to the top of it. That is really the end of kind of the introduction to me arriving in Bolivia with my first area at Purapura, and then some of the P-days and the trips we went on to explore and see places. wanted to just say here for 1 minute on baptisms. You know, I've got a couple of pictures in here of some baptisms and a couple of people that we'd baptized. That was, of course, our main goal was to preach the gospel and to bring people to an understanding of Christ and His plan of salvation and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And we worked very, 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 very hard to be able to do that. Many people were receptive, and many people had heard it and heard it and heard it from the last 10 sets of missionaries and didn't want to have anything to do with it. And in that work, throughout my mission, there was some very touching and spiritual moments, and there were a lot of times trying to preach the gospel and knock doors and make contacts and talk to people, have people call you names and yell at you and cuss at you and slam doors in your face. Like I say, there was a lot of discouraging days too, but there's a lot of, in my journal, if you can go, you know, if you find the places, I documented most of the people that were baptized that we taught, as well as several people that we baptized for the sister missionaries and so forth, that they had been instrumental in finding and teaching. But I didn't like to dwell. I just never, anytime on my mission, anybody started, let's get in a competition for baptisms and, you know, competition between zones of who can baptize the most. I just turned way off. And so I don't have a lot of pictures of all the, you know, the baptisms and so forth. I believe, as I remember, somewhere that I was instrumental, I believe, in baptizing around 35 to 40 people on my mission. And I've got a couple pictures, but that's all I'll say about those baptisms. But that was why we were there. That's why we were in Bolivia. But this is kind of the end then of this first part here. So, you know, before we go on to my second area, I saw just a couple things I wanted to talk about. Back to the no bathroom at all in this first area. Most of the time we had toilet paper, but sometimes toilet paper was tough to get, and sometimes you had to use newspaper, or Joseph Smith pamphlet usually was the best one to use if you had to, out of the tracts. But that's one reason why today I say I will never run out of toilet paper or not have toilet paper again. And so we store quite a contingent of toilet tissue at our house. One of the other things is, you know, the camera that I took down. I took down an old 35 millimeter camera that my dad gave me. It promptly broke on me after I was down there just a few months, and ended up having to buy as I recall, it was $150. Man, that was like 1 month. You know, Dad was sending down $130 a month for my mission and buying a camera for $150, but it was also a little 35 millimeter German. It was called an AGFA, as I remember, AGFA, or I could be wrong, but I'm just going by memory what that was. But that's what got me through my mission. Normally you would take your pictures, and then you'd have it developed, and they just develop it into a strip. You know, they wouldn't mount slides. There was no printing. There was no way to get your slides printed. There might have been, but it would have been very, very, very expensive. So we just got the strips, and then many times we would buy just the blank cardboard slides that were, you know, intended to manually mount your film, and we'd spend some time and cut the strips up and mount the slides ourselves. But that's kind of the slides I took. I took a few, you know, I took more slides than what I'm showing you in this history, but these are the best ones of all the slides that I have and I've scanned. The other thing I forgot to say is I was with Kelly Taylor 3 months, and then my last 2 months I got a guy named Elder Brown, and I can't remember his first name. Elder Brown. So I was with him the last 2 months of my 5 months in Pura. And Elder Brown, he was going home in just, you know, 2 months. He was ready to go home and pretty trunky. I don't remember him, but he and I got along okay. But I was still there trying to go, and he was kind of winding down. So I don't remember a lot about him. But now, I went to a city. My secondary was called Oruro, O-R-U-R-O, Bolivia. It was Had a couple 250,000 people. It was a major city in Bolivia, up again on the Altiplano. Pavement in the central part of the city, pretty much, but everything else, everything outside of the city or around the surrounding, just a dirt road. This particular picture here is the main highway between La Paz and Oruro. 2-lane highway with some shoulders on it. This is really the only paved highway between cities in Bolivia, at least up in where we were at. Now, there might be down in the jungle areas, down in around Santa Cruz and Cochabamba and Tarija and so forth. But in my mission, which was the highlands, the high side, this is the only paved road between communities. And there was a lot of accidents, a lot of wrecks. The bus that I took, the buses were very nice though. Nicest buses, usually made in Europe somewhere, Volvos or made in Sweden or I can't remember the names. Mercedes were some of the nicer buses, but they didn't have too many U.S. buses there. But this was just kind of show you what this is the main, kind of that main highway. This is a picture of Oruro here. Like I say, there's a couple 250,000 people or so forth here. This was quite a large city. I believe there's about 8 elders or something like that, 8 to 12 maybe. And then there was several companionships that worked in several of the mining towns around Oruro, an hour away or so forth. My first companion there, and I was only in Oruro 2 months. I was quite sad. I couldn't believe they pulled me out just after 2 months, because the more rural I got, the more I liked it. I really fell in love with Oruro. My companion there was named Colin Broughton, Broughton. He was 3/4 or so into his mission and everything, and I got along with him really good, but he was very, very quiet. You couldn't read him. He was kind of expressionless a lot of times. And if this comes across other people other missionaries, Bolivian missionaries, if you remember Elder Broughton, you remember he was quiet, but he was very, very spiritual and very dedicated. And I was so grateful to have him as a companion down there. Let's see here. I'm just kind of looking at my notes here as well as I go. Let's see, Elder Gibby. He was, you'll see him at a picture I show later in my 40-year reunion, but Elder Gibby was one of the zone leaders there, and I really took to him, and I think his companion was, I can't remember who that was, but anyway, Elder Gibby, he was from Idaho, and he was he was part of a major pig farm operation up there, and he was a very, very good mentor as me as well. This next picture here is kind of one of the streets, kind of where we worked in Oruro. I don't know what all the rubble is. I don't know kind of what the situation here. This kind of had these little streets, like it was. Wasn't for cars. It was more for walking, but just kind of give you an example of what it was like there. On one of our P days there, we were out. You can see I'm in my Superstars, and I wish I had that waistline and pants size. I think it was 30/38, shrink to fit, something like that. My first part of the pant size is much higher than the second part of the pant size from what I wear today. But anyway, we were out playing around, and we could always be in our non-church clothes and that on P days. Usually had P day till about 5 o'clock, and then we'd eat dinner and then go back to work in our nicer clothes. Again, I always wore boots, but again, we always had to wear our clothes. Didn't have to wear a suit coat if it was hot, but always had to have the white shirt and tie on. But we were playing with one of the little Bolivian slingshots here. As I remember that they're called ondas, is what I remember. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's like a David and Goliath sling made out of llama hair, wool, with a little pouch at the bottom, so the people could get really good and swing those with a rock, swing it up around their head and over, and really get very accurate with these things and hit little things that were bothering the sheep and everything else. I got so I could do pretty good with it. I've gone out a few times in the last few years to try to mess with one and end up practically hitting my own head with them. But we had a lot of fun with those. I can't remember for sure if the next two pictures here were in Oruro. I believe it was, but I'm not positive. But this was kind of a more of a high class market where you could, your grocery shopping. This is where you do your grocery shopping. Now, there was no everything, there was no, you were lucky to get maybe a little plastic bag to put some flour or rice in. And then you kept that little bag so that when you came back, you could use it next time you came to the store. But everything, you shopped every day for food. You couldn't store anything. Like you say, no refrigeration or anything else, but you shopped every day for what you needed. So if there was ever a strike, and there was quite a few major disruptions involving strikes of the truckers and different people that, if goods aren't being transported, makes it pretty tough when you buy everything you're going to eat that day. But that's just the way things work. By the way, there was, I'll get to the revolutions. There was 5 revolutions, overthrows of the government while I was there. But these are just typical pictures of how you might, shop at the bigger cities. While we were there, I loved this picture. Somebody had this old truck, stake rack truck there, Oruro, and I took this picture. I just love this. They tried to keep the tires from rotting and everything, but I never saw it dry. But the cab, they'd retrofitted the cab. That cab is made out of wood and everything on that. While we were there in Oruro, we at the first part of our stay, we stayed with in a nicer place that actually had a bathtub with hot water and hardwood floors, and we were able to get a room there. It was an ex-railroad employee that had started to kind of go senile, and his wife was like the Pollyanna, the lady in Pollyanna that was pretty mean that ran the town. She was kind of like that, and she was tough. We ate with them for a little while, but it just didn't work out, and they got mad at me. We had twin beds in one of the rooms there, and she got mad at me because I sat on the bed. There was no chairs, and so she didn't want us. She told us twice to not sit on the bed, and because she wanted the mattresses to be nice, and it was my fault. I just wasn't following directions. But so one day we came in for lunch, and she'd moved the nicer twin bed out and just put a little piece of trash in there for me to sleep on, bowed in the bottom, and I couldn't even fit in it. And so she was so mad at me. But we started looking around. Within just a couple of days, we found an inactive member of the church that had a little room out in the back, and we were able to stay there. That lady was really excited to have us. That was, I believe, a dirt floor in that one, but it was way more down to earth, and I felt much more comfortable around that than I did the higher class place with the running water. So only 2 months in Oruro, then I get notice we're getting pulled out. We had a little success there. I remember we had some baptisms. We're instrumental in teaching a lot of people. And again, please know that I'm going through a lot of these histories and slides, not focusing on the counts and the numbers and all the pictures of who we baptized. But I loved Oruro, and I loved the people there. I loved the little branch, and I believe, and I don't have the name, I do better journal entries than I ever did, if anybody hears this. But then I get notice I'm getting pulled out, and if you look in my journal, you'll see some frustration and a little bit of bad mouthing and bickering. Why is the president pulling me out? But he pulled me. I went from the opposite of being up on the Altiplano in these rural areas and got pulled down into the bottom of the bowl in La Paz at a place called Achumani, right next to Calicoto, and this is the richest area of the capital city. And like I said earlier on the tape, nicer homes, money than anything I'd ever been around in my entire life. And so down there, I didn't get to wear my Red Wings. Had to look a little bit nicer down there. This is me kind of after I got there, I believe, in kind of a upper little terrace of the place we were able to stay. We stayed with a guy named Jorge Sarabia, as I remember. He was kind of a longer term member of the church, and President Kimball, when he came to Bolivia, met with him, and anyway, he was a great guy, and I can't remember his wife's name. They had a little daughter as well, as I remember, but I just don't remember the names. But they had a little room underneath there. It was a little storage room or something, and Elder Garner there, he was my companion. He is shorter than me, and that door is shorter than him. So we could not stand up inside our room. But it was quite nice there. This little family cooked food for us. And by the way, I should just point out here that we usually hired maids, so we had maids throughout most of our mission, and we hired people to cook our food, except for breakfast. Breakfast we always just did our own. But most of my mission, we had a family or somebody that would go to every day that would cook our lunch, and usually the same family for dinner. Lunch was the big meal, dinner was a smaller meal, and then we'd usually hired maids in that to do our wash. Didn't have to wash our clothes, and I feel bad for some of those maids because they had some dirty clothes and underwear. Lots of problems with controlling your bowels and sicknesses and everything else, but they were wonderful, and they kept us going. That's Elder Garner there, my companion. A couple of the ladies that I think helped us out here with some of our stuff. One of the maids, I believe that's a mother and daughter there, but anyway, you can see how short they are compared to me. They generally don't like their pictures taken. They get pretty embarrassed to get their pictures taken, but I noticed it was probably a little bit colder part of the year when I was here. It looks like I went to Achumani. Well, I don't know why. It's just, I guess that's high up because I went to Achumani in December, December 20th of 1978 is when I showed up in Achumani. That's the summer. So I don't know why I had this sweater, this Bolivian sweater on over my white shirt. But even in the summer, it got very, very cold, in the night. There's me, for whatever reason there at Achumani, I was washing something of myself. Don't know why, but that was probably the only time I ever had to wash anything, was this little short period here. But that's me out in their backyard washing some stuff. Down in the capital city, there's two very, very nice chapels in La Paz. One was down in Calicoto. This was, I believe, the Calicoto Chapel. And then there was another one in Miraflores that I went to when I served near the Miraflores area, kind of in the central part of the city. But these are chapels the church built and dedicated, and it's quite interesting. You'd go to church in here, and all the rich people would be in front, and yet around about this area there was, and the servants and everybody else, but the kind of the outskirts of Achumani and Calicoto, there was very destitute areas. You'd see all the indigenous peoples, the Cholitas, and the indigenous people that were always in the back. Hopefully that's better now. Part of the reason for that is some of them didn't speak Spanish well. They just spoke their Indian dialects and Aymara and so forth. But I just loved this. I just loved this place. This little family here, I grew to love. Hugo Vargas was his name. He was a doctor in La Paz, and his wife, I don't remember his wife's name, and I don't remember the kids. I don't remember the kids. I could probably, it may be in my journal somewhere. But this family was a solid little family there down in Achumani, Calicoto area. Now, being a doctor, you might think he was well-to-do. No, he wasn't well-to-do. He was one of the only ones that I was ever around in Bolivia that had a vehicle, and it was an older Jeep. Willys are I believe it was a Willys Jeep that he had, and so they, even doctors didn't make a lot of money. But I loved this family. They loved the elders, and they did anything that was asked of them to help out. And so that was pretty special to me. I got very, very close to this family. This mother had, her kidneys had failed, and she was having to get dialysis, and her husband was helping her with the dialysis. You can imagine what that would have cost, but the dialysis machine in La Paz was flaky, and they were quite worried about if she was going to live. And they finally got the ability somehow to be able to get to the Salt Lake City or something to be able to possibly get a kidney transplant. And I don't believe she ever made it. I believe she was on the list, but I believe she died a while after I was gone. A horrible experience I had with them is that in my I was naive and so forth, and when he said he was working to be able to go to Salt Lake City LDS Hospital to possibly when a transplant became available, I said, well, you can just stay at my house the whole time you're there, which could have been a year. And I never even talked to my mom and dad. And when I let my mom and dad know, they encouraged me and said that's not going to work. I believe they would have opened their home to them, but how would they have transported them to Salt Lake and back all the time and dealt with all the issues that go with that? And I had no clue. And later, after I left this area, I was in another area, but I had to go back down and tell them that wasn't going to work out, and they were pretty devastated. And I cried and cried as I left because I was so torn. I didn't think things through before I acted, and I think they kind of felt like I had abandoned them, and it affected me greatly. But she did not make it. A year or so later, I don't believe she ever got her kidney, and she passed away. And I don't know about them now, other than several people talked about him and possibly the kids. I believe that little girl came to the reunion here just 3 years ago. I've lost all my Spanish. Don't ever do what I did. I might just say right here that if you're going to learn a language, study it and use it, you'll use it later in your life. Well, I was married in engineering school, 3 kids under 3. And the last thing I could do is work on my language, and I just let it go, and I couldn't even open my mouth. So when I went to the reunion, many of the people were speaking Spanish, and I just kind of was I couldn't say much and didn't understand much what they were talking about. But I believe that girl was at the reunion. Let's see, a couple of things that happened here. So I just want to point out though, what a special family, the Vargas family. This next picture, there was I believe it was Pioneer Day or something like that. Even Pioneer Day, in Bolivia, U.S. Utah holiday, people celebrate the pioneers and they're dancing there, down in Bolivia. And so they had, got into some of the costumes and that. The next picture there, I believe, was the branch president. I believe his name was President Cardenas. I'm not positive on that, Cardenas or Cardenas, in the Calicoto branch, which then became a ward. And that's his little family there. And look at that, they're cooking one of my favorites, waffles. I'm not positive on the name, but I believe that's who they are there. One of the things that we did in that while we were kind of in that area, and this might be out of order a little bit. It might have been after my next area. I got sick and had to come back to the capital city for a while. But this next slide is, we did a big exposition down in the capital city and made a big deal out of it, trying to show posters and different deals on, to explain about what the church is. And those are some of the elders there. And people did come and spend a little bit of time with that. One of the big highlights of the exposition is these are 2 Tongan elders. These Tongan elders were called from Tonga, right out of Tonga, to Bolivia La Paz Mission. And they showed up at the, El Alto International Airport in grass skirts and so forth. And anyway, they were amazing elders, but they were fire dancers, in their previous life in Tonga. And so a part of this expedition, to get people's interest, these guys were doing the fire dancing. And believe me, it brought a lot of interest. But these guys were really, really good elders right out of Tonga. One of the exciting things that happened is while I was there in Achumani, and I was there 4.5 months after Oruro, got there December 20th and was there until about May 2nd. Elder Benson, and it was Elder Benson at the time, President Kimball, I believe, was still the prophet, but he came down and he rededicated the country of Bolivia for missionary work. It had been dedicated quite a few years before, I believe in the 60s, but he came back down and rededicated it for missionary work, and it was a huge event. Their political leaders, civic leaders, non-Mormons, as well as most of the members came, and he did that on the lip, the ceja, I can't remember the right word, the lip of the Altiplano. And I just remember, it was very, very special. I have quite a bit of stuff written in my journal about that. Let's see here where I'm at here, so I can keep going. Let me just look at my notes. So Elder Benson, I wrote down that happened on January 12th of 1979. Also during this time in the month of January, and I don't have any pictures of that, but in the month of January there was such a deluge of rain. Like I say, I've never seen as much rain as hard as it was. I remember one time coming down, getting off the bus that brought us down into Calicoto from up maybe at the mission office or something. It was raining so hard I stepped out of the bus and about half my calf was in water. The rain was coming down the river, and I don't know the river's name, but the city or the state, Bolivia or the city or something, had just got 2 or 3 brand new Komatsu bulldozers. And this was a big deal. That you didn't see any heavy equipment around, and this was a very, very big deal for the country. And they were like D10 Caterpillar, cats. They tried to get those Komatsus in the river to try to channelize and try to get rid of some of the debris to stop some of the flooding. Apparently there were several people killed in that flood right where I was at over several days. But anyway, they got one of those big Komatsus in there. It stalled because of the water. And by the time the water, receded, it had just been moved down the channel and rolled and bounced. This is a Caterpillar, and basically destroyed at least one of their brand new Komatsu Caterpillars that they were so proud of. Let's see. Okay, well, that was Achumani that I served in until the 1st of May of 1979. Let's see though. While I was there in February, I believe we took a paseo or a field trip on our P-Day to Oruro, where that was where they held the biggest carnival celebration. And man, this is why I'm kind of bored with parades in the United States, because a carnival parade is unbelievable. And it's entry after entry after entry. There's no spacing. Like, you go to a parade in the United States, you wait 3 minutes between entries, and the band might play in front of you, if you're lucky, between 4 blocks. Well, down there, there's bands and music, and the dancers there, this particular truck stalled, and so their guys are pushing the truck, but somebody was displaying, this entry was displaying the Virgin Fatima or something like that, or whatever, or I don't know what it was, but anyway, displaying all their gold and silver plates, and that was an entry, and it was, look at all the people. I mean, this is just a drop in the bucket compared to who was there. I believe this was in Achumani, so this was, I just been over a year on my mission, year in Bolivia. This was my blue Swedish knit suit. You can see it was starting to get pretty hammered, the inside. This was kind of a badge of honor to be able to get to the point on your mission where you could open up your lapels there and the inside was hammered. So this was an exciting day, just over half my mission. I was a real Bolivian missionary by this time. Look at my tie. It seems like the ties are a little bit wider. Look at that belt. I always had pretty short hair. Funny, as I've gone through my journal, I've got 2 different journal entries in my mission where I say we're going to get haircuts today. I got it cut really short, and I like these short haircuts so much I'm going to have these the rest of my life. And out of the blue, in two places a year apart in my mission, I kind of use those same words. So I guess that's why I always have this short hair, which is this is getting pretty long right now. Okay, I think that's really, I think, the Achumani. Okay, one of the things I did forget to say, my companions, Elder Garner I did mention I started with. I was with him for a few months, and then my last couple of months I was with Elder Dale Revelli, Revelli. He was from Evanston, Wyoming, and he and I got along really good, and I was great to have him as a companion. Then I got word, and I was so excited. I got word that I was being transferred to Villazón, which is right on the border with Argentina. It's a little border frontier town. 1,000 people, a couple thousand people maybe. Everything's dirt. Matter of fact, it's dirt from Oruro down to Villazón. Luckily, I rode a train from La Paz. It was a 23-hour train ride. I don't remember how many miles or kilometers here, and the train goes pretty slow, but 23 hours. But that was in an event in itself, because I went down, let's see, so Villazón, I'm going down there May 2nd, so it's starting to become their winter, their cold season up high on the Altiplano. And the temperature dropped way below freezing in the train car where I was at. They were just seats, and there was a toilet, kind of a bathroom, in the next car that you could go to, but there was no running water. The floor, there was some leaking water on the floor. Everything was froze solid. That's how cold it was. I had my thick socks on with my Red Wings. I had everything I owned. I had a big leather bomber jacket on. I had my London Fog overcoat on. I had Uchu hat over my ears, everything I could. But we pulled into what's called the Uyuni, which is a big town right on the edge of a huge salt flat. That's I just don't know the distance. You can look on a map, but it's several hours quite a few hours north of Villazón, but down in the south part of the country. Remember, we got out. They let us out for a minute, and I thought I had frostbite. I couldn't move. I couldn't feel my toes. I couldn't move them. I started to walk around as much as I could, and we were out for about a half hour before they got us on to continue the trip going south. And my feet finally started to sting, and I honestly thought I was going to have frostbite, but I had no lasting impacts. But boy, that was cold. That was a cold trip. Arriving down in Villazón, this is kind of what it looks like. Again, right on the border. The train goes right into Argentina, from Bolivia. This was the border town. On the Argentine side, the town is named La Quiaca. This was Bolivia. That Dodge truck there, that was our branch. Well, let's back up a minute. Let me say, it ended up being our branch president's. It was his taxi. That's what he did for a living, is taxi goods around the town. You can see the train tracks there. Sometimes the trains would come up from Argentina and have to kind of pull this little bit of a slope here, and sometimes they didn't have enough engines to pull it up, and it was kind of fun watching them trying to get up the hill. This wet and water stuff is probably just sewer. Everything. This was the dry season. Notice there's no cloud in the sky anywhere. That's just dust on there from my trying to scan the slides, is all those little black streaks. Everything, a lot of stuff was just open sewer. But that's kind of what the town looked like. Everything dirt. Another view, that was kind of the little city or the town building over there where the radio towers are. That's where the post office was, as I remember. That was kind of a big deal for us to get letters and so forth. My first companion was named Edwin Gonzalez. He was a Bolivian from Cochabamba. Oh man, what a great companion he was. I was kind of nervous to get a Bolivian companion. Just how am I going to deal with this? The speaking and the culture and all the little things that go with it. But he and I got along so well. He was such a good guy. I think later he became one of the district or zone leaders, or maybe even an assistant. But that was Edwin Gonzalez there. Let's see. He pretty sad part way. We were together 2 or 3 months, and halfway through our time together, he got word that his 17-year-old sister, he only had one sister, I believe, was killed riding a motorcycle with somebody over in Cochabamba, and it was just devastating for him. I didn't know how to help him. He was mourning, and it was really pretty tough. But that was Elder Gonzalez, and when I first got there, I was made the district leader. There was 4 of us there, 4 in the district, 4 elders in the whole town, and I was also made the branch president of the Villazón branch. There was 15 people, 10 to 15, 20 people maybe in the branch. And so I was the branch president, trying to figure out what to do. Well, after I was down there, less than a month, I think it was about 3 weeks, President Hill and the assistants came down, and they came down for, a mission visit and to interview members and everything. And he had decided that one of the members was ready to be branch president. So he made him the branch president. I became his second counselor to that branch, and it was my job to kind of teach him everything, how things should work. But I was glad for that, because might say I wasn't. It was nice to be called as a branch president, but believe me, I was so happy to know that I could help as a counselor, help somebody else that was ready to go. I believe, by memory, the branch president's name was President Ramos. And I've got a conflicting deal in my journal that's bothering me a lot, but I believe it was President Ramos. And he's the one that owned that red, the red Dodge truck. He was the only one of there weren't that many vehicles owned by people in the town, and he was one of them. So let's go on here. This is anytime I've got several of these little photos that a lot of times in the different plazas. Every town had a plaza, big square. Okay, and every town had a plaza, usually with a fountain and a statue or something. But we'd always get, and people were always there taking the old-time photographs. They had their big wood box cameras, and they'd tell you to, get set, and then they'd pull the cover off the lens for about 2 or 3 seconds, and they had a little way of doing it where they'd take it off on one side and put it off on the other, so it wouldn't get some of their hand in the picture, but that they knew how to expose it and the exposure time, and then they would develop this right in their camera and hand us this picture. So this was Elder Gonzalez and me. This is I wrote this later on apparently, but I said this is my previous companion, Elder Edwin Gonzalez, and I was companions with him for 3.5 months, and that has been my longest companion so far in the mission. He is really a great guy, and we had a lot of spiritual experiences together. Page 169 of my journal there. So, but I really, really loved him. Another kind of little picture of part of the town there of Villazón. Notice kind of in the foreground here looks like kind of the part of the town dump right there. Another picture kind of looking at the town a little bit. We had a little bit of success here, especially helping to build up our branch and everything, and we did have some baptisms here. Let's see. Here's where let me make sure I'm on the right picture here. Yes, this is where we met. The little family that we roomed with had an indoor courtyard, and then they had this bigger room at their place, and they let us. We rented this and used that as our chapel. And La Iglesia de Jesucristo de Santos de los Últimos Días is there above the door, and then somebody had spray painted on the side, "Kill the Yankees." We had there was a lot of sentiment down in this town, and I don't know why, but there was a lot of negative sentiment, and it was a little bit tough here. A lot of people hated the Americans here, and we never did get that washed off. That was there for quite a while. I don't know why we didn't figure out how to get that washed off, but it was there. But it was very, very cold, very, very cold at nights. There was an indoor place where we could get to a bathroom that had some running water in it, which was really nice at this location. Kind of a bad thing though here is that we were so cold in the morning. Sometimes we'd just go right out it was kind of an adobe annex, and just adobe walls, and we'd go outside and unfortunately we would just pee on the wall rather than work our way to try to get into a bathroom, not knowing if the family was there or whatever. And finally the owner came to us and told the elders, please quit peeing on my wall because you're disintegrating my wall. That was a little bit embarrassing and kind of a wake-up call there. But that was that. There's the elders. That was the 4 in our district. That's me. I was the district leader. My companion's on the right, Elder Gonzalez, and then Elder Waimura is next to Elder Gonzalez. He's from Hawaii, the big island of Hawaii. And then Elder Enrique Kidman. He was a Guatemalan that I believe was adopted by a Brazilian or American family and spent most of his time in Brazil or Guatemala. Anyway, he was a very, very, very good speaker Spanish and a good elder. Later became an assistant, I believe. This was the inside. This is kind of what we had inside that big room where we kind of met, the 15 people or so. That was kind of the pulpit and a little sacrament desk, and there was a piano there, but that's where we met. Let me get to another picture here. That's me kind of in the central plaza of Villazón in my brown suit. The top of my brown suit turned green from all the UV radiation. And by the way, I had no sunscreen. There was no such thing as sunscreen. Of course, we didn't wear hats. We should have. But my face was permanently damaged. The skin on my neck and my cheeks were permanently damaged. It's one of the reasons why now, as you see me with these, if you looked at my neck, you'd see all these problems on my neck, and then you see these blood vessels all poking out of my cheeks that make it look like red cheeks. That was all skin damage from the high altitude UV radiation. Altitude here was just under, I believe, almost 11,000 feet at Villazón. No paved roads anywhere. But if you crossed the border, there was the town of La Quiaca, Argentina. And there was a lot of European influence here. It was quite a bit different. Here's a bunch of little school kids. There's paved roads everywhere. Here, across the border, they had refrigeration. You could come over here and buy cheese, refrigerated. You could buy beef, Argentine beef, refrigerated. So a lot of times we'd cross the border, buy some good stuff, take it back to Bolivia. But this is why in Villazón we had a refrigerator. Some of the elders before us somehow, and I don't know how they did it around the customs agents or everything else, but they bought a refrigerator somehow. I don't know how they got enough money or how much it cost, but they hauled it back across the border, but they didn't go through the border crossing. They hauled it somehow away from town and got us a refrigerator. It was kind of nice. The only place we had a refrigerator down there. A couple of interesting things. Crossing the river, the border was a small little creek. This always bothered me. This was the Argentine side, well manicured, trees whitewashed on the bottom. They did that a lot to keep the dogs from killing the trees. This was the Bolivian side, kind of ugly, and I don't know why the Bolivian side didn't do a little better job, but they just kind of let the Argentines look nice, and they didn't look so nice. Here was a typical, like I say, this is where I did have to go 1 month. This is inside the little courtyard. To the left of that picture, off the screen, is where the little room was, where we had our rooms. And oh, it got cold in there. We had little propane infrared heaters that we'd use before we fell asleep. And one time we fell asleep and one was on, and luckily woke up with a horrible, horrible headache before we succumbed to carbon monoxide poisoning. But you had to be very, very careful. That was a pretty scary event, but it was so cold, below freezing in your rooms. But that was that was my shirt, that you wore. You had to get your neck. It was about that dirty before you could get it laundered, and we had maids to do that for us, but it was pretty ugly. But that's showing one of the pieces of clothing. Again, I'm just proud of my I'd become a real Bolivian missionary, showing you my ripped lining of my suit coat there. That little book in my pocket, that's kind of where we kept all of our appointments and calendars. That's what I used during my mission, and that was one of the little Bolivian belts I bought down there. I was all proud of. Got rid of the black belt with the huge buckle and bought that somewhere down there. Here was the little members, of our little branch. We got a little branch picture. This was a little ways after those other pictures, because by then Elder Peterson was down. He was companions with Elder Alstrom. Elder Alstrom was from Idaho. Elder Peterson was from Spanish Fork. Elder Peterson and I just loved each other, and we became companions in a different area after this. He's one of my best companions and good friends. But those guys were tall. They're taller than me by 3 or 4 inches, and you can see how they kind of stood out in the crowd there. But that was just a fun little branch, and we loved each other and served each other. And these people were the salt of the earth. Okay. Next one, we went on a little P-Day Paseo, a little picnic with the branch president. This is the branch president here, holding the cup in the kind of the yellow or yellow orange gold sweater. His wife's on the right. You can see I was sick down here. I started to lose a lot of weight. I got really sick with worms several times. But we had a fun day at this little paseo here. I got so sick that they had to move me. This is where I'd gone to the doctor. Dad knows about all this, but anyway, they'd gone to the doctor and thought that I had, can't remember. Anyway, it was pretty bad disease from waterborne illness, and they gave me a medicine that damaged my liver. The medicine was not the right medicine, and the dosage they told me to take was wrong, and it damaged my liver. And I wonder to this day, whenever I have a scan or whatever, they'll come back and say I have some weird thing on my liver, if that's not the problem. But I remember Dad was pretty upset about that when I told him about this in the mail, that this had happened. But then I got worms super bad, really bad. They couldn't get rid of them, and they brought me in. I was in Villa Zone for almost 5 months, as I remember, looking at my notes here. And I was about 3 weeks of that 5 months, 3.5 weeks. They brought me into the capital city to get medical help. So I kind of stayed. I was down in Calicoto, down in that Calicoto area down there, worked with some of the elders there, and it kind of nursed me back good enough. And I was just praying that they would send me back, that President Hill wasn't going to move me into the capital city, that he'd let me go back, and he did. But I got really sick in this location. For our baptisms, this guy on the right of the Ford stake rack truck there, in the hat, black hat, he was a non-member. But his wife, here getting out of the truck in the black sweater, she was a member, and she was very strong in the little branch. And anytime we had her husband was rich, and they had kind of a nice little dwelling, nicer than anybody in town that I knew of. This guy, I don't know what he did for a living. He moved a lot of goods across the borders. He transported things. Whatever his business was, he had a truck. He had a nice truck. Anytime we had a baptism, he was so nice that he would haul the branch, anybody from the branch, out to the river where we did the baptism in his truck. So basically everybody would get in the back of the truck. And that's where we'd go out for the baptisms. On the way out there, that's the river. This is the top kind of where the road was. Notice you wouldn't want to fall off the road. there, but that's where we baptized, down in kind of that river area down there. And while I was there, a lot of times it was iced over. We'd actually go and break up it was thin ice. It wasn't hard freeze, but it was frozen overnight. You'd go break the ice off it for the baptism. And I remember it was rough. You'd get in there and you were red as you came out, and the Bolivians were scared. They weren't used to going in water. I mean, they just were not. And I remember one guy I baptized there, one of our investigators. He was so brave, but when he came out of the water, he was just screaming. He was shivering and he was screaming. It traumatized him so much to go under that cold water. But man, they were brave. Here's one of the girls that I baptized in that river, and unfortunately, I could not find her name, nor I believe this was her sister. Her sister, I believe, might have been named Antonia, but I couldn't find the reference. I believe it's in my journal, for somebody that wants to search it out for Bolivia, for when I was in Villazón. Here was our maid down in Villazón. This was inside that little courtyard area. Notice this was high class stuff. They had a sink out there where she did the wash, and I believe she also served the family as well that lived there. But this was a big deal. But notice the adobe walls. But having running water was unbelievably nice. And she loved us. I wish I could remember her name. I could not find a reference, but man, she was good to us. And the stuff that she had to wash, oh, she was brave and so loyal and faithful. We would, to be able to get money, we would have to cash our checks. We had a United States checkbook. Matter of fact, it was Alpine Credit Union. Dad would deposit money into that checkbook, and then we would actually, I took, so many blank checks with me, but we actually, in La Paz, we went down to the capital, the center of the capital city, down to Citibank somewhere. They cashed our checks. It started out being 20 soles per dollar. By the time I left, it was about 25 or 26 per dollar. But down here, we had to go 3 hours north to Pisa, north of Villazón, where there was a place that would cash our checks. And so we'd come in here once a month to try to cash our checks, and we'd, have to carry. There was no such thing as credit cards or anything like that, so we had to hide and carry the money on us and hide a month's worth of stuff and otherwise carry it. But Pisa was a nice little town. There was 4 elders there as well. They had their own district, so we'd usually get together when we'd drive up to see them. I loved the trip. Driving between Villazón and Tupiza because it just reminded me of home. Matter of fact, there's a stretch out on the highway between Vernal and La Pointe on the old highway, back in those sagebrush flats back in there, that just reminded me, spitting image. Of course, this was dirt road. This was rock road. There was no pavement, but it sure reminded me of that scene. Just beautiful country. This was our little dog. This was the family's dog, but I considered it my little dog. His name was Ranger. And man, that dog had so many fleas. Oh, you can't believe how many fleas that he would move on to us. And by the way, it wasn't just this dog that did the fleas, but there was bed bugs and fleas throughout my whole mission, no matter where we were at. And it finally got so bad that, I'd have every morning when I'd wake up, I'd have blood on my sheets, on my legs especially. And finally I had Dad send us some dog flea collars down, and so we would take some of those flea collar strips. We'd cut maybe out of one flea collar for a big dog, we'd maybe cut it in a third or a half, and we'd put those flea collar strips in the bottom of our bed with us. That really helped with the fleas and getting bit. So while I was in Villazón and throughout my mission, we had to take gamma globulin shots every 3 months. Gamma globulin was to help with the hepatitis B's, I guess. I'm not sure the number, but I remember having to get gamma shots when we went to Peru as a kid. But these shots were a help, an immune booster for your body. And so we had to take gamma shots every 3 months. We had to give them to ourselves generally. So down in Villazón, I documented one shot here. And what you'd do is we'd always give it in the thigh of the leg. And what you'd do is you'd spank your leg enough to where it got red, and it kind of deadened it. Then when you shoved the needle in, you wouldn't feel the needle at all. Of course, we didn't know what we were doing. At the beginning of the mission, when we got to La Paz, one of the training things was the health sister missionaries would come and show us how to give these shots. But then after that, we were generally on our own every 3 months. So that shows me with the syringe. You can see it's full, and it's pretty thick stuff. I can't remember how many cc's of that is, but that's full. Cindy would know. The needle, I think, was 2.5-inch needles. The next one is after you shove it in, and then you slowly pump it in you, and then when you pull it out, I had to get the shot of blood coming out and everything. So that was the gamma globulin shot. But the thing about it is Elder Waymura, he was the one from Elder Waymura, he was the one from, it might have been Elder Kidman. It was one of the two other elders there, and man, I feel bad. Which one was it? I think it was Elder Waymura. But anyway, he was scared half to death to give the shot, and this was his first shot, I believe. And so we were all around him, egging him on, go, and doing all this stuff, and he just kept trying to jab. He'd get to the point where he'd almost jab. He'd move the needle to where it was within an inch of his leg. And this went on for about 10 times. We said, you got to do it. Just go. And then he accidentally went a little bit too far, and it poked in about 1/8 of an inch. And it freaked him out so bad that the shot needle fell on the dirty floor, the dirty floor. And then he just picked it up and jammed it in his leg. We thought, oh no, we thought he'd have massive problems, but he got through that fine. So I had Elder Gonzalez here for 3.5 months or so, and so my last couple of months, I got a brand new Bolivian companion named Elder Tancada. His name was Domingo Paulino Tancada, Tancara, with a lot of Aymara ancestry with him, and he was from Viacha. Dad will know where Viacha was because he ended up, while he was in Bolivia, that's one of the places up on the Altiplano, several miles, 30 minutes or so from the edge of the Altiplano, back on a little town, and he interviewed some people for his research there. But anyway, Elder Tancada was from Viacha, and he and I got along really well as well. I love my Bolivian companions, but he was brand new. He was a pretty new member of the church and brand new on his mission. Like, he didn't go to the LTM. He showed up with me, and it was a great experience with Elder Tancada. This is another one of those little plaza photos with him, and this was on September 26th. Would have been 79. Let's see. Yeah. Going on here. Yeah. No. Yeah. 79. September 26, 79. Page 171 of my journal. This is my companion right now, and his name is Domingo Tancada. I've been with him for 1 month now. He is also a great guy, and we get along just fine. And I started putting these little sayings on the bottom. These were the days of the wind and dust in Villazón. I mean, it was windy and dusty, and I wore contacts, and it was really, really tough. I remember one time we got a little game going. We got a little challenge from some of the townspeople to play basketball against their little town team, against the elders team there in Villazón. And so we got together and went out, and it was dark. It was kind of dark. There was no lights. I mean, there was some lights to light the court. The basketball rules are a little bit different in South America, and the key instead of being square was a little bit trapezoidal. But anyway, so we some of us were pretty good players, some of us were not good players. But anyway, we went out, and I got bumped, and my contact went out on this was concrete, actually. It was a concrete little basketball court. But I swear the whole town came out to watch this match. There was hundreds of people watching us. my contact went out. They didn't know what a contact was, and I'm sitting there trying to say, stay back, and so I'm down on my hands and knees looking around for my contact. 99% of the people there had no clue what was going on, wondering what's this American doing. But I finally found my contact, put it in my mouth, rinsed it off, put it back in my eye, and we played. But anyway, we lost. We lost, and the town was just going berserk. They were so happy that we lost that game. Okay, next experience while we were there in Villazón, there's a little town called Quirisa, Bolivia. It's about 44 miles from Villazón. Early on, this is a special little town. Elder Richard G. Scott, when he was a mission president in Argentina, and I don't know which mission, there was a lot less missions there when he was mission president, but he had heard that there were some people in this little mining and agricultural town in the middle of nowhere, was far away from the railroad and all that stuff, that were interested in the church, that there were some elders there that had taught the gospel, and the whole town was wanting to be baptized. It was a miraculous experience. Anyway, so Elder G. Scott, he brought some of his missionaries. He went across the border into Bolivia, and this was in the, I don't know for sure, so I'm not going to say, but I believe it was in the 70s, 60s, probably the late 60s, somewhere in there. Not sure again on the date. Church history will have that down. I remember him giving a talk about it one time. So he brought him in there, and they decided, yes, this is real. This is real. And they essentially baptized the whole little town of several hundred people. Okay, and so by the time I got to Bolivia, there was a big downturn in the economy and different things or whatever, but Quirisa had died. Half the town had left. The mission president had pulled out the missionaries and moved them to Tupiza. Again, that was 3 hours north of Villazón, where this little Quirisa town, I don't know whether it was east or west, but 44 miles northeast or northwest of Villazón. They had no missionaries. They'd been pulled out. The current President Hill, when he got in, President Allred had not put missionaries back in there. President Hill did not see fit to move missionaries back there either. But we had a discussion to give out there. There was somebody that was in there that wanted us to teach. So we said, we're gonna go out there. We'll go out to see it, and we'll give this discussion. So this is the bus, and this is the little guy that took us out there. That's his wife and daughter. That's his bus. You can see the next picture. That's we were out on a P day. We were not dressed in our suits and stuff. Anyway, that's Elder Ahlstrom and me. The bus took us out there. It's all gravel and dirt road. You cross a river, cross the river several times in the water. But we show up toward the evening there, and this is what we find. We find this is the town of Quirisa. This is this a few people on the street. That's the bus that brought us. And then we find, okay, let me go back to Elder Scott. So the whole town was baptized. They constructed a little chapel in Quirisa, an LDS chapel. And this guy showed you on the bus that was our bus driver. He was not a member, but he called us elders as we were on the bus. And he said that he had helped when they built the church there. He had helped haul much of the materials back and forth from Tupiza to build the church. And by the way, the bus, it was only, several hours, 5.5 hours, 5.5 hours to go 44 miles. Okay, it's around 40 miles from my house to Salt Lake that I can do in 45 minutes, an hour. 5.5 hours over this place, and it was packed. There was people in the aisles, standing up, on the bus. But anyway, when we show up there toward the evening, this is what we find. This is the little Mormon church. This was the only really whitewashed building in town, in the little town. You can see everything else is adobe. And this is a picture right at the front. La Iglesia de Jesucristo de los Santos de los Últimos Días. And this when Elder Scott's missionaries built this, when the whole town was essentially members, they got President Kimball to come down to Bolivia, and President Kimball came to Quirisa, and I don't know if he was president. He might have been just, one of the apostles, but he dedicated this. It was the only chapel in Bolivia, dedicated chapel for many, many, many years. And so this was very, very special experience. And the people there were so excited to see us. We went and found the little branch. We found the branch president. This is what the inside of the chapel looks like. You can see they have a picture of Christ right there. They have their hymn number deals there. That this was the inside. But branch president was so excited to see us. I mean, they felt totally abandoned. They felt like the church had abandoned them. But they were true, and he said, tonight is Hovind's night. It's the mutual, it's mutual night. And so he wanted us to come and wanted us to speak. And so we got there. Here's a picture of the youth that was there that night. We played some games. A couple of us gave talks, and they were so excited to have us there. Off to the side of the church was a special little room they had built for the missionaries. And maybe it wasn't right at the church. It was at a building next to the church, but that's where we stayed. Geez, there was horseshoes in there. The missionaries had horses down here and stuff. Anyway, horseshoes. But Elder Peterson Peterson at the time was Elder Alstrom's companion. He and I slept on the floor, and Elder Tankara and Elder Alstrom slept in one little bed that was there. But that was an experience that I will never forget. I write about it in my journal, but it's too dear to me to read. So if anybody wants to read it, find that. That was October 9th of 1979, around that time, that trip to Quirisa. Okay. While we were down in Villazón also, I think we had a zone conference and were called up to the city of Potosí, where missionaries were kind of a central location where people were meeting. And I believe this was taken in Potosí, because we had a day or two to kind of look around, before the mission conference, before we had our bus ride back. That bus ride was quite a while too. I remember about a 13-hour ride by bus from to get to Potosí. 12-hour, I wrote that down, 12-hour bus trip from Potosí to get to that zone conference. And I believe, I'm not positive, but I believe that this picture was taken near that area too, while we took the time to go hike up to some monuments and so forth. I'm not positive, but I think this is kind of that same time frame. This is a good time to probably say, as we taught, we used the charlas, the discussions, but we never did them memorized. Luckily for me, we knew the content, knew the spirit, and depending on the family, depending on the person, depending on the way the discussion's going, we totally did that without memorization. I couldn't imagine where some of the missions, they just wanted you to memorize and give that way. But we also luckily we had what was called film strip projectors with different topics on, and that was kind of fun, and that was intriguing to a lot of people to be able to, we loaded up a film strip. It was like 35 millimeter, just a big long film, and you'd put it in this projector, and it had a knob on it, and you'd click, and so it'd put a slide out. So we just find something flat and dark enough that we could show different church topics on it. But people loved that, and I wanted to mention that on those film strips that we had. I'm going to stop here for a minute and grab some more notes, and I'll be back. All right. I wanted to go back to just one experience on the road between Villazón and Potosí for that zone conference. It was kind of an overnight thing. The bus was kind of a nice bus, all dirt and gravel road, of course. But the bus cab where the driver sat, actually, it was like an airplane. I mean, it had the cockpit area, or the driver's seat, had a door there. So you had to get to a door. The doors to get off the bus was before this bulkhead door where the driver was. And I'd never seen a bus like that. But anyway, in the early morning hours and we made a couple of stops along the way for bathrooms. And the bathrooms, by the way, you'd run outside the bus, go behind a wall, and poop or pee right there. And that's where everybody else went too. And then one time they stopped for a minute at a little cantina or something where people got some type of food or something. We couldn't get any. We'd get sick. But anyway, so in the early morning hours, we're in the Andes. You know, we're on these dirt roads with no guardrails, and if you go off, you go down hundreds of feet down cliffs. And it seemed like the driver was he was erratic. I mean, he was getting close to the edge. And people on the bus were getting very nervous. We think the driver was drunk. At the previous stop, he had had a little bit something to drink, and we thought he was drunk. And the elders that were there, I think there was the four elders were on there from Villazón. There might have been 8 elders. We might have joined up somehow from the Tupiza elders. I think there was just the 4. But anyway, the dual wheels, you know, I'd look out the window, and one of the duals had to have been over a cliff. And so we thought this guy was drunk. So some of the other people on the bus, they were up banging on the door, just banging. We got really worried and thought that we were going to die because this guy's drunk. He's going to put us over the edge down a cliff. Somehow, and I don't remember how, but somehow we got into the cab and got the guy restrained, and don't remember who drove or what happened, but anyway, we limped into Potosí. That was a very, very scary experience. That's kind of it for Villazón. I did mention that for 3 weeks I was back in the capital city for a while because of being sick, and that was a pretty tough thing. Let's see, did I have? I'm just looking at my notes here. Okay, so we ended up with that picture of me kind of on that hike up to the cross there that we think was around Potosí. So Villazón was one of my favorite places of my mission, but after 5.5 months, as you might read through my journal, it got a little bit discouraging, and there's some negative feelings that I expressed there about being tired of this town and the people and how they were treating us and throwing rocks at us and rejecting us all the time. And I got a little bit burned out in there for 5.5 months, even though I consider it, and that my Cadiz experience being the greatest of my mission. But then we get a transfer called, and I'm going to the upper Miraflores area via Fátima. That's kind of down in the bowl of La Paz, kind of when I say nicer area of town, it's much nicer than like Pura and those places, but still a lot of destitute buildings and people and living the best they can with the means that they have. But I was called to go there and be companions with my LTM companion, Elder Waite. And so I was really excited to do that. This is him here, one of those plaza pictures again. I went on October 17th, was transferred, I believe, up to La Paz, to via Fátima, Alto Miraflores area. And I said on October 24th of 79, this is my companion right now, who is Elder Jim Waite. We are the zone leaders for the central zone in La Paz. We were also LTM companions for 2 months in the LTM. I'm really glad for the opportunity we have to work together for a second time. We are working in Villa Fátima, which is in the city of La Paz, page 187 of my journal. So zone leaders, I'd been a district leader, but didn't know really how to be a zone leader. And between Elder Waite and I, we worked hard and worked together. We had some tough times and some good times and a little bit of success. And seemed like we kind of, at times when I was happy, he was suffering from a little bit of down times, and when he was up trying to get me going, I was a little bit down, but we had quite some experiences there. So I was 2 months with Elder Waite, and then Elder Rex Peterson, who was down in Villazón, was transferred up, and he was made my companion, and I was really excited to be his companion as well. He and I again, worked together down in Villazón, and he was just a month or two behind me in mission timing. Um, while we were there, we were the zone leaders. There was about 20 in the zone, and about half were sister missionaries. And so that was quite a different thing for us, because we didn't know how to. We weren't the best zone leaders, I think, for these sister missionaries. Didn't know what we were doing, and we were either discouraged with them or they were discouraged with us, or both. But I think we all worked hard together and had quite a bit of success there. One of the very tough things, though, that happened there was while I was in Bolivia, there was 5 revolutions, 5 coups or takeovers of the country. This one happened to be quite a violent one. We were at this point, you can see this street. This was a paved street in La Paz. You can see the homes around it. This is a gated. Everybody had their gates, and this is where we lived. We were taking a picture from this window. This was a armored personnel carrier, a guy that was going up and down the street. This was one out of the 5 coups. There was 2 or 3 of them that were just a takeover. A couple of strikes for a few days, a few strikes, and city shut down, and then things back to normal. This was one of the very violent ones. Several hundred people in La Paz were shot and killed. Missionaries, we were confined over about a 3-week period, off and on. We were confined to our rooms for 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks, sometimes we didn't have any food. Things were pretty rough. There were people being killed around us. There was airplanes strafing the city at different streets. There was one night, and I have that on one of my tapes, one of my cassette tapes that I sent home to my mother and father, during this time, where I'm holding the tape recorder out the window, and you can hear close gunfire going on. And I think when my mom and dad got that, they were probably wondering what in the world happened. But this was a scary time. Let me just move into a couple things here. So I was there 4 months at this location. So we had Jim Waite for a couple months, and then Elder Peterson for a couple months. And so I was getting very near the end of my mission. I was within several months of going home when I left this area. I want to just say right here for a minute about letters, family letters, letter writing, cassette tapes, and so forth. It must be a lot different back then than it is now, because we spent several hours of our P days writing letters to different family members, getting letters from different family members. Those letters sustained us. And I'm telling you, if you didn't get a letter that week, we picked up our mail once a week. We got it we had to go into the capital city and picked it up from the mission office. And I just can't tell you how important it was. I got letters that were very much make or break for me during my mission. I got letters every week from my mom or dad. I got letters all the time from Aunt Faye Boyd. The best letters in the world. And I've got all of the letters I received from my brothers and sisters, from Cindy's mom, Greta, from Cindy's grandmother, Madge Olson. Sent me letters all of the time, and from friends in other missions. And I've got a stack of them. And I'm telling you, they were very, very, very important to me. I don't think without that I could have made it through my mission. I never called home. We could call home once a year, but it was extremely expensive. And I never called home once, so I never got to talk to my family one time. But these letters, I just want to emphasize how important they were. I also wrote a lot of letters to my family, back to brothers and sisters, grandparents. Grandma and Grandpa Tullis, Grandpa Morrill, Elsie, my great aunt Elsie, who was also my step-grandmother, married to Ellis Morrill. I mean, they wrote me all the time. I wrote a lot of letters back too. My dad handed me one day, many years ago, all of the letters that I had written home in an envelope. And I kept those and had those when we moved to this new house 18 years ago. I can't find them. I've torn the house upside down, and I can't find those letters I wrote home. At least I've got the record of what people wrote to me. The other thing that was very important is we were required to take on our missions a cassette recorder. I got a really nice little Panasonic one that was kind of smaller, that was really nice for traveling and putting in your suitcase. A lot of the other elders had have bigger ones, but we received, we used those to play the speaking and music parts of the film strips that I talked about earlier, the church film strips. We also used those to play cassette tapes that people sent us from home, and also to make cassette tapes to send back home. I also might say that on the mail going back and forth, it got so bad because they'd get lost. You couldn't rely on getting or sending or receiving mail. With my family, we actually started numbering letters so we'd know which ones didn't make it in the mail. If they mailed me or I mailed them, it was around a 2 to 3 week wait to get that letter in their hands. So you could see it's a lot different than email today. When I just got to Bolivia, and it was late May or early June, so I got there the middle of May of '78. So just a month or so later, maybe 5 weeks later, I was a basket case. I was, like I talked about before, I was having some homesickness. I was having some culture shock, no bathroom, no running water, those type of things, and not knowing the language and just feeling pretty down. One P-Day, went into the mission home, and there was some letters, but there was a cassette tape from my family. And I was elated. I was so excited. I couldn't stand it. And I put that in my tape recorder, and the reel stripped the tape off the end. It wouldn't play because the reel just tore it off one of the reels and wound it up on the other reel. And I was about in tears. I was devastated. But the senior missionary there that worked in the senior office, he was a senior missionary. He was helping out, helping with an assistant to the mission president, as well as I think he was running the motor pool and different things. Luckily it was a nice quality Sony or KDT tape that had screws. It wasn't just glued together, it had screws. He got his tiny little screwdriver out and was able to take the top half of that case off that cassette and get the end of that and get it wound around the right reel, and with a small little piece of scotch tape and so forth, got it set around that reel so that I could get it in my tape recorder and play it. And I was never so happy in my life than being able to play that tape, because it wasn't just a short tape, it was a 2-hour tape. And it was Memorial Day, a Memorial Day type thing of 1978 or something. If that's the case, that's the end of May. So I would have got this at least a month after that. It would have been not early June, but late June when I finally received this. Everybody talked. My mom, my dad, my grandmother, my grandfather, even Ellis Morrow, my other grandfather, and Elsie were there from their Fort Duchesne home. They were there in Vernal, and people were celebrating, and so I got to hear, and that I've got that tape. That's actually on my website. I've put that as an MP3 file on my website if anybody's interested in ever listening to some of these tapes. Several of those tapes are on my website. But anyway, what was tough is as I started going through that tape, different people would come on and say, well, I guess you heard about the accident, so I won't repeat it, type thing. And I went through 3 or 4 or 5 different people on that tape, one after another, saying, well, I guess you've heard about the accident. And I was dying. I was freaking out. What accident? Well, finally, it was either my grandfather or my dad got on, and finally they explained the accident. And what had happened is they were riding horses, and Mike, my brother, got on Dusty, who was one of the Palomino horses my grandfather had. And Dusty was always, I remember, Dusty was always just a mean-spirited horse. But anyway, Dusty rolled over the top of Mike with a saddle. Mike was lucky to live through it. The saddle horn didn't bust his heart or break his spleen or stop his heart or crush his lungs or anything, but rolled right over the top of him. And Mike lived through it without a lot of problems. Don't think he even broke a bone, but it was a miracle that he lived through it. But I finally learned this halfway to 3/4 through the tape. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say about the tape recorder stuff. Okay, before I got talking about the the letters and the tapes, and was talking about the revolution, I wanted to go back just a little bit more as well, and say that, you know, by this time, you know, I for the first half of my mission, I was pretty concerned about Cindy. I was pretty concerned that she was going to Dear John me, that I was in love with her. Cindy and I was in love with her, to be honest, in 5th grade, with a little puppy love in 5th grade. We were in the same 5th grade class, and I was afraid that she was going to forget who I was. And it's interesting as you go through our letters and different things, and even some things I said in my journal. So the first half of the mission, I'm worried that she's going to leave me. The second half of my mission, I was more into things and more into the work, and I think she started sensing in her letters that I was cooling off a little bit, and I think maybe she started to get a little bit concerned. But I even have a few statements laid in my journal here about this time that I'm, you know, was thinking about Cindy and kind of worried, not sure I felt the same way, and was really kind of concerned about what things were going to be like when I got home. And we'll talk a little bit about that kind of as I end the mission stuff. And I might say too, while I was there in Miraflores, Villa Fatima area, my companion that came up, as I mentioned, was Elder Peterson, and I was really excited to be his companion. This is my page, another plaza, a little bit of a plaza shot here, but it says, this was a very special companionship for me because Elder Peterson and I worked together down in Villazón. We had some special experiences together here and also down there. The days of no investigators. Okay, this was the tough part of being the zone leaders, and when I was with Elder Waite and with Elder Peterson, is we worked hard and we were discouraged. We had a lot of the times we had no investigators even to teach, and so that's why that page 2 something, can't read it I guess, but January 24th of this would be 1980. It was the days of no investigators. Okay, so the final place on my mission, I was moved on February 20th of 1980 to the Altiplano. Man, I wanted to be on the Altiplano, not just in Oruro or Villazón, but I wanted to be on the Altiplano just out of La Paz, my whole mission. And I was so excited. I was assigned to an area. I was a zone leader, but I was assigned, they moved me from a zone leader and made me a district leader at Villa Dolores. And I was kind of wishing they wouldn't make me a district leader, that I could just finish out without having any of those responsibilities. And they gave me a brand new companion from the United States named Elder Robert Newth. But we were assigned to that Villa Dolores area. We actually lived in a little place. Our place where we lived was in a place called Ciudad Satélite, Satellite City, right on the edge of the Altiplano. It was called Satellite City because it was kind of laid out in circular patterns and everything. But Elder Peterson and I had some great experiences there. There's some people that we were involved with the baptism. That's Elder Peterson there. One time we had a fun morning. We'd make pancakes and eggs and waffles. I think it was up here. I think it was, not positive it was this area, but one of our maids, somebody brought some root beer extract or something like that from home, and we were using that root beer extract to make syrup. So it was root beer syrup. It's not as good as maple syrup, but anyway, we had pancakes a lot, and the batter, we found the maid, when she wasn't washing the dishes. One time we just found, that day's egg mix or pancake mix was just kind of foaming under a little cabinet with cockroaches in it. But that's what we found we were eating each day. That she was making us pancakes. But that's that bomber jacket Elder Peterson's wearing. Practically every elder bought one of these to come home. This was kind of a famous garment that a lot was sold all over the city by different vendors, made by hand. Everybody had a slightly different style, but it was a bomber jacket style. I've still got mine. Mine's in great shape because I didn't wear mine a lot on my mission unless it was super, super cold. So mine's in great shape. But there he's got his jacket on. One day, Elder Peterson said, we're going to make cinnamon rolls. We were craving cinnamon rolls. And so he figured out, that was one of the elders that lived in where we were living. Don't remember his name, but man, he had never seen anything like this. But Elder Peterson knew how to make cinnamon rolls. So he was mixing up the dough, and let me tell you, they were pretty good. I think this might have been another time, but I believe this was the time we went on a little field trip to the Yungas. Okay, the Yungas is not only several hours, maybe 2 hours, three hours maybe from La Paz, but you go from the Altiplano down into the bowl and then down into this, when you're up on top, it was snowing. This has to be another time because this would have been February would have been the summer. So this would have been another part of my mission. I've got these in the wrong sequence because it was actually snowing up on the divide up high as we were dropping into the Yungas. That was the bus that we were on. That's one of the elders there looking at me. But just a few hours later, you go down, you go down from the Altiplano and the bowl, you go down into essentially the jungle, the headwaters of the jungle. And it was just tropical down there. So we went down there for a little paseo or a little P-Day trip, and then came back. Here's another little family, part of that little family that was there before, part of their family members, excited to see their parents get baptized, I guess, or something. And I believe I have these names. I found that as I went to review my journal for a lot of the people that we baptized, I did write names down, but I don't remember who they were there. So let me back up. I'm out of order just a little bit. Before the Altiplano here, I was not yet up on the Altiplano in the Ciudad Satélite. I was still in the Miraflores area, Villa Fatima, on these last pictures. So we're not there yet. What I said about the Altiplano is right, but I'm out of sequence, so hold that till I get to another picture. But while I was with Elder Peterson, and Elder Taylor was an assistant at the time, president, we went on a visit back to where we stayed early in the mission with Zoila Torres, and that's her grandson behind him, Rodolfo, and then Paulina, and then Paulina's mother, which is the daughter of Zoila. And so we went back to see them while we were stationed there. And like I say, this is my grandmother, Bolivia. Okay, now we're at the Altiplano. Back to where I was excited to get up there. We're right on the lip of the Altiplano there. That's me. My backpack, I carried that backpack. Those shoes I was wearing there, for whatever reason, I wasn't wearing my Red Wings that day, but we bought these little desert boots while we were down in Villazón that were pretty comfortable to wear. All these shoes made by hand. You don't go to the shoe store and get Chinese shoes. These were all made by Bolivians right there. Matter of fact, let me just say on shoes that my Numbush, I think missionary shoes that I had to wear when I was down in that really rich part of the city in Calicoto and Achumani, they had the synthetic insoles. Well, while I was down in Villazón, one of the members was a cobbler. Like I say, they made shoes. He was a cobbler, and I had him rip out all those insoles, and he put leather insoles in. Man, they made those shoes so much comfortable after he put real leather in there. But this is where I was made the companions with Elder Nuth, another plaza shot. This is Elder Robert Lawrence Nuth, and we work in Villa Dolores up on the Alto. I got Elder Nuth as a companion with only 3 weeks to go as a missionary. We went into the area together, so we both don't really know what's going on. February 27th of 1980, looks like page 249 or so in 249 of my journal. Elder Nuth was from California, and he was brand new, and he was suffering the same little bit of homesickness, and I believe mostly culture shock that I suffered when I arrived there. I knew exactly what he was going through and tried to help him all I could. He did great, but he was probably doing the same thing I was when Elder Taylor was trying to help me through some some rough moments. Okay, let's see. Talked about the Ciudad Satellite where we lived. Talked about, I think I got all my notes covered here. Let's see. Okay, let me keep going here then. So on the Alto, that's right on the lip of the Alto, you know, before you drop down into the bowl. And a lot of these trucks are there to move materials from the airport and different things that are coming in and moving that down into the city. Those are taxis and for hire. But they made this fry bread, you know, the little cholita there, indigenous woman was there, and that's, you know, you could go eat, you know, it's like a scone, but they were pretty good, and it's pretty safe to eat those because you just boiled the heck out of them with dirty oil, but at least the bugs were killed. And so there were a couple of missionaries there eating those. I might say that the airport, you know, I talked about the airport early on. The airport brought in that meat. I showed the meat hanging on the racks, no refrigeration, but the old DC-3s and Curtiss, I can't remember the number of the Curtiss airplanes from World War II and the Korean War, so forth. That's what they used to fly into the Beni district. That's down in the headwaters of the Amazon. Down in the Amazon, that's where they raised a lot of beef, and they would partially butcher the beef there, just basically half the carcasses, throw them into an airplane, no refrigeration, and fly those up to La Paz, and then distribute those carcasses out and move them down into different places of the city and hang them on racks, you know, further butcher them a little bit more, hang them on racks, and that's what people ate. So down in this was a photo taken. Now this is Elder Nuth to the left of me in that picture. So this we would have been up on the Alto someplace. And I can't remember, but there must have been one of the chapels up on the Alto then, because this is up on the Alto, but this is some of the members of that ward. By the way, I should say back when I talked about Elder Benson, which I missed. I've got scrambled notes everywhere. When Elder Benson was there, about a year before, I believe I said, oh dear, when was Elder Benson there? I can't find my notes. Around a year before the first stake in my mission was formed. And the first stake in Bolivia was actually, La Paz didn't get the first stake. The first stake, I believe, was formed in Santa Cruz. But anyway, a few months after that's when the first stake was organized. And I think a couple of these guys were some of the stake high councilmen, leaders. And I just love these people. You'll see if you get into the details of my journal. Toward the end of my mission, I spent a lot of time in my journal just worried about leaving these people. Anyway, here's some of the missionaries that were up in that Alto area where I served. Elder Kidman again, I think he was an assistant by now. I don't know what his companion's name, and I don't know what some of those other elders' names. I think it was Sister Waters is on the right, and oh dear, Wagstaff or Sister Wagstaff or somebody, I'm not positive, was on the left, and then my companion's clear on the right, but just some of the elders and sisters that served up there in that Alto branch. Here's one of the little member families. This might have been a baptism that we just had or had previously on that, but a little husband and wife and their two little kids. Look at the people in the left inside the building looking out. They're just so happy and everything. Right before I left, I took Elder Nuth and Elder Peterson. We found Elder Peterson. We went back to Soilas to see them so I could introduce Elder Nuth to them. And by this time, I believe Soila was having some problems with keeping her property, and I don't know what the issue was, but I believe prior to this time, people had come and repossessed some of their beds or something, and they were sleeping on the floor, and everything. But I don't know what happened to her. I need to find some of my missionary people and find out. But like I say, I just can't emphasize how much she was special to me. on the mission. Elder Garner, who I had, a year or so before in Achumani, my first companion there, I never got a picture with him. So March 11th, this is like 3 days before I left to come home. I grabbed him and we went to a plaza and I got this picture. I had this picture taken with Elder Garner on the 10th of March. We were companions together from the middle of December 78 to the middle of March 79. We worked down in Achumani and we lived with the Saravia family. Elder Garner and I really had some great choice experiences together, and I really think a lot of him. March 11th of 1980 is when we did this, but he and I were companions, quite a bit before that. Right before I left, I got Kelly Taylor, my first companion, Elder Kelly Taylor, my first companion when I arrived in Bolivia. Again, we had to do we're real Bolivia missionaries. It is a little emotional, and I won't hide it. Unless you're a Bolivia missionary, you have no idea what it was like. Elder Taylor, special guy that was meant to be my first companion. And that's basically it for me. A day or so looking out from the Altiplano that I loved down into the capital city that I loved, and Mount Illimani and the clouds behind me. And I'm ready to come home, and I have in my journal there that I was done. For a while there, I was wondering, geez, how am I going to leave? I can't leave these people. But by the time I read my journal, by the time I was done, I was burnt out. I was expended. I'd been sick a lot, and I was so excited to come home, see my family, and see Cindy, and I said goodbye to those I loved, and the city and the mountain I loved. And I think that's all I wanted to say. Sorry for getting emotional, but I'm not going back and changing this because I can't remember what I said. I got jumbled notes all over the place. Okay, I think that's it for that. Then, just a while ago, a couple years ago, celebrate our 40th mission anniversary. President Hill's son, who's a stake president down in Spanish Fork, somehow got together everybody he could find that were elders during Elder Hill's 3-year mission term. Like I say, he started, I was there a couple months when he came, and then he was there a year after me when I left, but went down to Spanish Fork to a stake center and had a wonderful afternoon, and a lot of people were there. A lot of people that knew me, that came after me, that knew me and knew some of the work that I had done and knew some of my reputation, and for the good, I think, that came up to me and talked to me, and that came at either I was there but never got to meet them because, they were in different parts, or came after I left. But got a few pictures here to show you. I don't remember this guy's name. I didn't serve with him. But he was in one of my districts or whatever toward the end of my mission. And the reason why we hit it off is because he flew airplanes and I flew airplanes. And man, we got into that. So we grabbed each other. As soon as we saw each other at the reunion, we grabbed each other. But you can see kind of some of the people and little things going on at this stake center. This is President Hill taken at the reunion. He, I'm not sure how old he is now. He was one of the youngest mission presidents. I'm sure he was in his 30s when he went to Bolivia. One or two of his children, at least one, maybe two, was born in La Paz. So he was very young and still looks pretty young to me. But that's President Hill. About a month before I left to come home, I think I was still with Elder Peterson down in Miraflores before I went to the Alto. I was having some real sickness issues, and I was having a rough time. And I finally, somebody heard through the grapevine or heard from somebody that President Hill or somebody said that we need to quit going to the doctor so much. It's costing the mission too much money or whatever. And I totally corked. I had just corked. And I went down the mission office, went in his office and basically became a madman and just horrible to him, accusing him of things and telling him off. And here I was his own leader, you know, and I was sick. I was not myself. And anyway, I believe then he called Elder Peterson in, and both of them gave me a blessing, which really helped me and settled me down. And I just hope that President Hill forgave me of that. We sure had a good reunion at the reunion. I believe he did. I believe he saw it all. I believe he saw it all in Bolivia. He had to send, while I was there, the ones I knew about, I think he had to send about 6 people home for different problems. But I think he saw everything you could see being a mission president in Bolivia. I think, as I said before, unless you've been a Bolivian missionary, you don't know. I think being a Bolivian mission president, unless you've been a Bolivian mission president, you don't know. But I think he forgave me. You know, it was only a month later I left. Here's Elder Waite, my first companion, and then a companion later in my mission when I started there in Miraflores district, the upper Miraflores. I think he's still living in California, but we had a great reunion talking with each other there. There's Elder Gibby. He was one of the zone leaders in Oruro. He's the one that he kind of mentored me in Oruro, and he was such a great guy. I looked up to him like crazy, but I think he's still working on his farm, the big pig operation up in Idaho, up in there. That's Elder Gibby. And this is Elder Kidman. He and I, you know, he was one of the companionships down in Villazón, and then later we worked in the same district, I think up on the Alto. I think he became one of the assistants. Anyway, he was the one that spoke the language so perfectly because he had spoken it so much throughout his life. Born in Guatemala and then raised a lot in Brazil, I think. Here's Elder Garner. Elder Garner. Now, I didn't recognize him till he came up to me. He looks totally different than he did when we were elders. He had that curly hair and so forth when we were elders. But there's Elder Garner. Elder Garner I think he was a mission president as well, and he was released as mission president several years before. So he's seen a lot of experiences too. Here's Elder Dale Ravelli. He's the companion that I got after Elder Garner when we were down in Achumani. We had a great time at this reunion. Even a lot of the sister missionaries were there, and let me tell you, to be a sister missionary down in Bolivia with dealing with everything. I mean, we're a tough band of brothers and sisters, I'll tell you. Let me just turn this off and I'll finish this quick, and then we're going to be done. Like I say, we're a band of brothers and sisters. Unless you were there, you got no clue. This is when I started my mission. That was my mission application picture that then ended up on the mission president's wall. That's how he identified us. That's where I started my mission. This is what I looked like when I ended my mission. I lost a lot of weight because I was sick. I started gaining that back quite fast when I got home. I remember Aunt Faye feeling so bad for me. When I had my best suit on when I got off the plane, she felt so bad for me. She immediately on the spot gave me a couple $100 to go buy a new suit, which Mom and I went down. I think we got the new suit at Devy's in American Fork, and within about a month I'd grown out of the suit. They tried to alter it once and looked okay. The second time they couldn't even alter it more, so I had started to gain some weight back really fast. Don't know if I showed this first picture or not, but this is what President Hill brought with him to the reunion, and this was, you know, his board of his. I just zoomed in on me, but that was where he kept track of all the missionary names. So I got home, and Cindy was not home. Cindy was in Chile. She about a month or so before I got home, she had taken a job down in Santiago, Chile as a nurse down there doing some things with an adoption agency. And so she wasn't home. She got home about 2 weeks from that assignment after I got home from my mission. I remember when I got home from my mission, I went to see Walt and Greta. Cindy wasn't there. It was funny. I remember knocking on the screen door, and he came to the door and he goes, "You again?" He was just kidding. But I love them. Anyway, Cindy came home 2 weeks later. It was awkward. I went with Walt and Greta to the airport to pick her up. And it was the most awkward thing. Strange. Wasn't sure, just what was going on. And then a few days later, I think we went up to a 80th birthday party for her step-grandfather, Hugh, up in Salt Lake, and spent some more time. But after a couple of weeks, we'd been out a few times. Couple of weeks, it was like we'd never left. Knew we wanted to get married. We both felt the same way, and I think I asked her to. It's in my journal, the last couple of pages of my journal. It's quite interesting reading if anybody wants to read about my feelings and thoughts about Cindy. But we got engaged a couple of weeks after I got home. I had $200 I'd kept in traveler's checks for emergencies to my name, and Terry Tullis in Vernal was nice enough to hire me to help him as an electrician's helper for a month or two, and so I was doing that. I was broke, but I was able, through the money I did earn, to buy her a ring that cost $500. It was a 1/5 of a carat diamond solitaire, and I was all proud of it. I'm not sure that's what she wanted, but she sure never complained and never said one word. She wore that ring for 35 years of our marriage till I got her a better ring here several years ago. But we were so excited and knew that that's what we wanted, and we actually got married on June 5th, 1980, 3.5 months or so after I got home. So that's my Rich Tullis family history for others and for my posterity, for my mission to Bolivia and coming home and getting married to Cindy. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.